is up, RotoGrinders? Week 9, NFL DFS. Dean here. That's Dean 7904. Usual suspects as well, Kirkwood and Bobby Gomes. Again, 2.5 plus hours. Will be relieved by y'all get SquirrelPatrol and Erik Beimfohr comes in around 11:30. Crunch Time crew comes in. Andre, Kristi, and TheLuuch taking y'all straight at the lock, answering whatever questions we were able to answer, whatever questions Erik and SquirrelPatrol were not able to answer. It's about as thin of a slate we're going to have this season, just a 10-gamer, a bunch of teams on bye. Cleveland, Dallas, Denver, Giants, San Fran, Pitt, cross them off the list. Again, thin on quarterbacks with the absence of Jalen Hurts, who played on Thursday. No Mahomes, no Lamar. It's one really elite quarterback at the top we'll talk about. A pile of good running backs. No games over 50 as far as the total. We have the, Kirkwood, you theoretically, you should have got a little more sleep, right? Like we're always talking about Sunday morning. It's our pre-show conversation about sleep, and got an extra hour, but I guess didn't work out for you, unfortunately.
Did not. I ended up going to bed an hour later because of, I'm getting to save the hour, but my kid just got up at the same time, and so I was up at 4 a.m. instead of 5 a.m.
What have you been doing for like the first 6 hours? You crunching away at NFL stuff, or you're doing kid stuff, or both?
No. I'm freaking changing diapers, telling him, please, just stop crying. Please, just stop crying.
Does that work?
No, it's and then
giving them
feeding them bottles. You got to get them to. You got to feed. You got to burp them. You got to. It's
a lot of work, Dean. It's a lot of work. You
got to change diapers like 3, 4, 5 times a day? Like how many times does this kid go into the bathroom?
Oh, a lot more than that. I mean, he doesn't walk. He's just a freaking sitting, pissing, crapping, crying machine is what he is. And now he does smile though, so it's nice when he smiles and laughs.
That's the payoff.
Yeah.
So it's all worth it, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Bobby, you can confirm that all that sounds about right. Is that your life as well to some degree?
Yep, that's my life. I got a good night though, so I'm ready to roll this week 9.
Oh man, yeah. Do you like this slate? I kind of gave an introduction like I don't really like it, and I know producer Steve was like, how do you feel, guys? How do you guys feel about this slate? And I'm also, I feel bad for what was it? Is it Chris Hansen with 2 games? He did do all the filibustering in the world as far as the red zone. I don't know if you guys are red zone guys. But like just 2 games, 8-2. That's the way we're splitting it up. Come on, NFL, do better. Your thoughts as far as this slate, like pretty clear. Like Josh Allen's the top quarterback, and we'll kind of dig it through and talk about it position by position and all that. But salary cap reasons, you can't just lock him in necessarily. Your boy Tom Brady's still down there. If you're martingaling it, I don't know. I heard you talking about it.
There's no way. I was joking around our chat last night. I was like, I found the guy, and I sent an invisible ink DM to Kirk and JSU. Neither of them laughed or acknowledged it.
First of all, I don't even know what the hell invisible ink is.
It's like you can't see it, and then it pops in.
Yeah. The context clues. I didn't know what it was either, but I just kind of assumed like, does it like disappear at some point, or it's never even shows?
No, you can't. It like fuzzes around, and then you click it, and it says what the word is underneath.
Yeah, man. It's
I'm not on Brady. I can't do it.
Kirky, I didn't want to bring it up. I wasn't aware of it. You talked about it, but you had it's one of those deals, Kirkwood, where like when you have a big week, and you had a big week last week, congratulations. But like theoretically, if a couple things cracked a certain way, and like there were logical things that you could have had a monster week. So you're not supposed to like complain when you win. What did you win, like 40K or 60K or something like that?
I know what Dean's getting at here.
I won like 45K, but I should have won an extra 90K on top of it. And then if not even counting that, I should have won an extra 30K plus the 90K because of the DJ Moore touchdown at the end. That screwed me.
That was the worst.
That play. 37% owned DJ Moore gets the Hail Mary from Walker. Can you believe that?
It was brutal. That was like one of my bolder. I was very, very low on him. It was a good play, but like that was one of my kind of bold fades, I guess. And it didn't cost me $40,000 or $50,000, but that's one of those things. What was I getting at, Bobby? Because the thought process that you were considering using as our lineup, you guys were talking about in your podcast. That was a pretty fun conversation. I enjoyed it.
Chris asked me between the two, and I chose the wrong one. And but like I said on the pod, like Kirk's a very good DFS player. He should have went with his own conviction. You know what I mean? Like, be 100K richer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to needle him. Like, it's just one of those things where, like, I've done it before too, where I had like a nice week, and it's like I still find something to complain about. It's just like, but I understand both sides of that. But Kirkwood, this is the week we win 100K. Right? Let's do it. 6 figures. You feeling it?
Look, I had already put it behind me, and then you're here to talk about this. Let's move on, Dean. This is week 9. We got to win today. We got to give people some winners here who are watching.
I've upset you twice already today. Like once in the
Kirkie's upset, but Kirkie's absolutely crushing NFL. Like every week, I get a 20K screenshot. So,
and he wins. Are you still winning Rainmakers contests?
No. So now the new thing with Rain is that I always forget to. I always put off doing my Rainmaker lineups, and so I just lose so much equity by not even doing any. And I try to cram them in there at the end, as many as I can make in like 5 minutes. Yeah. It's a tale as old as time.
Time is a commodity, right? You got to hire a guy and just give them access to. I don't know if this is legal. I have no idea, but somehow if you can like delegate somebody to fill out your Rainmakers lineups. I'm fine because I hit like that week 2 or whatever it was, and I like no matter what I profit this season on it, so it's all just gravy from here. It's been all just gravy. So like even just like I should just go and sell them all. So it gives me less motivation, but it's so annoying to have to like, first of all, there's no like good, it's so annoying to make a lineup the way like the layout is and everything like it's like all in beta basically is like, so it's very time consuming. So it's like, it feels like homework, like, and I keep putting it off. But anyway, like I said, Dean, we're not here to needle. We're not here to bring up negative things here. We're here to give some people some winners. I thought it was a positive experience you had last week overall, but maybe I'm wrong. I would have happily traded for it. But I just want to say hello to the chat. What's up, chat? Kindly hit that like button and subscribe and turn on those notifications. But just Terry saying just a heads up, it doesn't get any easier. T from LOC. What's under 20K when you still have the joy of a screaming child at 4 a.m.?
Yeah, touche. T from Long.
All right, Kirkwood, give me the screenshot. I kind of laid it out. Just 10 games, a little more condensed as far as a player pool. I think this slate, much like last week, is running back heavy. We're down to like really good running backs all of a sudden. Like this, remember week 2 and week 3 are like we hate all running backs. Now I want to play 6 of them. I want to play 7 or 8 or 9 of them. I don't know if you feel the same way, but give me your general screenshot before we kind of dive in and break it down by position.
Yeah, like you said, 10 games, no 50-point totals. We do have 49.5-point totals and a 49 totals. We got 3 games there. That's probably going to get the majority of the action today. When that would be the Chargers, Falcons, Green Bay, Detroit, Seattle, Arizona. We also get some injury situations so we have some value all around in different places. The question is it depends what you do at quarterback this slate, really, because there's paying up for Josh Allen is what a lot of people are going to do, but that creates a certain type of construction that you're trying to lay up here. So it depends if you like some other quarterback plays. And then, like you said, we're running back heavy again. And I'm finding myself even without playing Josh Allen, I'm finding myself with not as much money as I want. It's coming down to like this cheap wide receiver again, like it was last week. We said on the show, like in my lineup that crushed, I said every single play on the show. It was like I laid out my entire lineup the entire show, and it was like Garrett Wilson. That was like the cheap, and he was the difference maker. But we were also on Wandale, Robinson from the Giants, and that was a difference maker in the exact opposite way. He just did absolutely nothing. So we're down, I'm down, trying to figure out my best cheap play to make everything I like work again. So I don't have that comfortable feeling yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's names like Khalif Raymond that I've seen thrown out there that people are looking at. I've heard the name Michael Bandy this week. The Chargers are without a lot of their receivers. Josh Palmer looks like they're de facto number 1. There's not a lot of cheap receivers too. It's kind of gross. Drake London's kind of cheap on FanDuel. He's pretty cheap on FanDuel. As far as you kind of reference some things, it looks like it's going to be most likely that Harris is going to be out for New England. That's the expectation. So Stevenson looks like going to be an absolute stud as far as running backs. Just kind of checking in. Waller most likely out. I'm not sure if he's officially been ruled out, but he's expected to not be available. So, Moreau once again becomes an interesting cheapie. Tight end, there's really not a ton of opportunity cost because we're without, without Kelsey, without Andrews, without Kittle. I think it's like Pitts or Everett or like the highest like raw points projected tight ends. That's kind of sort of where we're at right now. They're asking season-long questions in chat for you, Kirkwood. You ask them and they abide. So I guess you got to answer those now, I suppose. But if you want to answer some season-long questions in chat, by all means. Greg wants, Brian wants.
Yeah, keep those season-long keep those season-long questions coming. We love them. We love to give advice. Dean is a big season-long. He's got a lot of season-long teams. You're a big season-long player. But in that first question, I would definitely take Brian Robinson over Robin Tonyan.
Tonyan's one of my favorite tight ends today, but that Brian Robinson's not a tight end, so that's a tough call. I don't know. What do you have here, Bobby, as far as is there anything you want to add as far as how you feel about this slate? A little bit different. There's some value pieces out there. Indianapolis. I had a hard time. I don't know if you're playing much on FanDuel, but I had a hard time not playing Deion Jackson in my lineups, which I kind of hated just because he's $5K and he's so much cheaper than everybody else. A little bit different on DK where the difference is not as much. Of course, Jonathan Taylor is out once again this week. But, yeah, what do you have before we kind of dive in that you want to add in regards to just the overview of the slate?
Yeah, I think hitting your running backs is important. Stevenson, get Eckler in there. I think quarterback, people are paying up for Allen. I'm kind of in the same boat as Kirky. I don't know if I'm playing Allen this week. Divisional game, tough game. You would expect with this Jets defense. And, I'm playing more quarterbacks than what I would usually. So I find that it seems like more of a throwback slate.
I don't want to ruin your segment, jump the gun on it, but you're big on those defensive plays. You like to talk about that. The Jets are 2K on DK. Is that wild to play the Jets? I don't think it's completely insane on a slate.
They're in my lineup.
They're in mine too. Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's mostly because of salary cap, I assume. It's not because you love the Jets necessarily.
It's I'm struggling to find money. If I could get 300 more, I would rather play Carolina. But we got to roll with the Jets at home.
We got another season going.
Sauce Gardner. I mean, the Jets' defense has been great. It's just it's the roughest matchup you can get. But I like the Jets to cover the spread here in this game, and I'm going to be on, and they're 2K, so yeah, whatever. Just roll the dice, see what happens.
Variance. My theory, by the way, of Sauce Gardner's name was like Ed. People wouldn't think he's nearly as good as they actually do think he is. He's good, but Sauce Gardner sounds like a guy that can play. Ed Gardner
he sounds electric.
Yeah, Ed Gardner. It's maybe a 6th-round draft pick. Michael's got a question in chat specific for Bobby. Season long. I know it was Kirkwood.
Yes, I love the season long. We're very welcoming this season.
Tom Brady or PJ Walker? It's a real question.
Brady, play Brady.
Oh my God, they're still asking. This is amazing. I can't tell if they're trolling or not. Pittman, we can just do this for the hour, and then we'll turn it over to Eric and Pittman, McKenzie, or Duvernay, 0.5 PPR. Man, who's Duvernay playing? I don't know.
I don't even know. Yeah.
You play Duvernay or Pittman. You play Duvernay or Pittman. They're what's his name is out. Mark Andrews is out.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah. It's going to be Isaiah Likely season.
No,
right?
He's wide receiver 1.
Yeah, but all wide receiver 1s are not created equal, right?
I actually like Duvernay for what it's worth. So.
Duvernay's an extremely talented, electric player. I always liked him too on special teams and wanted him to get more playing time. I think he's good.
He's fine, but he's not Tyreek or Steph Diggs or whatever. B-Rob or Swift? Yeah, what is Detroit doing with Swift? Why can't they just let this guy relax? They're gonna. What's the report? Minimal, or they're barely gonna let him play, but they're gonna let him play. What's the point? They're half measures with Swift. Swift versus B-Rob. This is another season long question.
Keep them coming, guys. We can do the whole show like this. Let's do it.
I love it.
There's nothing like season-long questions.
Oh my God. Yeah, they're talking about Mixon. He's been a no-show this season. Yeah, we'll talk about Mixon. Mixon's had the opportunity. He's certainly an opportunity. Steven in chat's asking about ownership. Yeah, producer Steve's going to be showing off the lineup HQ tool, which shows off the ownership and stuff. And I'm not sure if it's up on the screen right now, but certainly he's going to jump back and forth as far as FanDuel and DK. And we'll talk about ownership as well as we kind of dive on through. And you know what? You guys can win RotoGrinders Premium very, very easily. I actually put out a tweet. I'll go ahead and drop it in chat for the people, but just give me a bold call. It's got to be bold. You got to be ambitious. You got to be most correct. You got to bank it, and you get a month free. You can't even put a price on that. You could, but you can't put a price on the actual honor of winning it and being correct. Answer this tweet. Don't answer it in chat, but answer it actually in the tweet, and just be more correct than everybody else, and you get yourself 1 month free ORG Premium. That's not just football, by the way. It's all the sports, everything you can think of, with the exception of NASCAR. All the projections, all the expert articles, all the good stuff. All right, let's fully dive in and talk about the slate. Again, we got 2+ hours, plenty of time. We're just kind of like the appetizer in regards to the RG shows. You touched on it, Kirkwood, like in a stratosphere of his own. Josh Allen. If you're looking at ownership, FanDuel especially, it's at 20% plus. The cap's a little bit easier to make it work over there. On DK, it's Josh Allen. And I hate talking about Aaron Rodgers, but if you're not talking about Aaron Rodgers against Detroit, you're just never talking about him ever again. And he's super, super cheap as well. We're expecting Lazard to play. We'll see. Nothing official just yet on that. Actives and inactives come out an hour and a half before kickoff, so they'll let you know at 11:30. Erik and Squirrel. If you're not playing Josh Allen, Kirkwood, and it doesn't sound like you're really on him, I assume you think he's good, obviously, but you're going another route. Who are you looking at?
Well, I mean, I'll just get my thoughts on Josh Allen. So Josh Allen's expensive. So he's $8,500. That's the price. So he's obviously the best quarterback, right? Like, he does it all. He's third in passing yards with one less game than a lot of these other QBs. He's second in passing TDs, fourth in rushing yards, sixth in rushing attempts, fourth in red zone carries. So there's nothing wrong with Josh Allen. He's the best. The Jets have been a really tough matchup. They're 8th in DVOA versus the pass. They're top 10 in rushing yards allowed to opposing QBs. But again, none of this really means anything because Josh Allen could be matchup proof. But they also have Sauce Gardner on Steph Diggs, which also makes the stack less appealing, right? So are you going to play naked, or are you going to play him with Gabe Davis? What are you going to do? He's fine. He's a great play, but he's also chalk. So I'm trying to beat him this week, and I mean, I can give you the other options, or I can tell you who I'm playing. I'll tell you first who I'm playing. I'm playing Kyler Murray. I'm a Kyler truther. I'm always looking to play Kyler. I hate the short shaming that people do, and they talk about his height and
who does that
and use it against them.
That's low-hanging fruit. I would never
disrespect. But regardless,
I'm king of the shorts.
I like this game. This game is much different than first of all, full disclosure, I was all in on this game, and I had the nuts around it, and then bombed when they played a few weeks ago because the game was awful. But this is now Arizona's at home. They're finally showing signs of life on offense. They are a much different team with DeAndre Hopkins. They average 8 points, real points, more when DeAndre Hopkins is on the field at all times. So he's got Hopkins back, makes a great stack. And Hopkins, the target share is ridiculous. So you can feel really good about that stack. He's third in passing TDs, 12th in yards per attempt. He's got a good PFF passing grade, and he's done it with absolutely no receivers whatsoever. So I'm on board. And the thing I like too, in that game, he ran in that game. He went 10 rushes for 100 yards in that game. So I just think that him being at home, and he's a discount at 7,400. I just think there's a lot of upside, and I think this game is going to shoot out and play a lot differently than it did the last time, where it was just Seattle running the ball and Arizona not being able to do anything on offense. So that's where I'm going. There are some other good plays. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers at 5,900. This is the nut matchup for him against Detroit, 32nd DVOA versus the pass. Detroit in third in fantasy points per game allowed to QBs. Aaron Rodgers hasn't done anything this season. The craziest thing, and on the last game when they played Buffalo, they said they're down 17 points late in the third quarter, and the announcers are saying, yeah, this is their strategy. They're just going to control the clock, keep the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. Like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life, right? Like, you're down 17 points. It's time to start airing it out, and they didn't.
They didn't want to drop in the polls. Like, if you would have lost by 40, then all of a sudden you drop down in the polls. I think is what they're trying to do. They wanted to save face.
So, but it was very clear they just run, and then a little bit of Aaron Rodgers, and could he have a good game? Yeah, but I much rather play Aaron Jones or not. Maybe Bobby's going to be touting AJ Dillon. I don't know. We'll wait and see. But I mean that's a good tournament leverage spot. But so there's Aaron Rodgers. Then there's Trevor Lawrence, who I liked this guy. Like, I've played him too much this season. But the thing, it's the nut matchup for him against the Raiders, 31st in DVOA versus the pass. He's also 5,200, which is the lowest price he's been. So he's also been terrible, right? Like, I admit that, and he's very terrible. Yeah, and so, but it's low price, great matchup. Maybe he can bounce back and not make some stupid throws. And his weapons are getting a little bit healthier. They're not the best of weapons, but, I think Travis Etienne, not having James Robinson in the backfield and having a back who's electric through the passing game, just as good as he is in the running game with Travis Etienne, is a plus in my eyes for Trevor Lawrence. So this game could go off, and I think we're going to see the Raiders actually step up and play well on offense after that. McDaniels, after being embarrassed in their game last week. So I expect that game to be pretty good, but those are kind of the guys I'm going with, and I'm trying to narrow it down to. That's like kind of my top four. And then there's guys, Bobby's going to like Tom Brady. There's Joe Burrow's in play, right? Like, there's other options. Geno Smith is going to be popular. I'm not doing it, but I get it. But yeah, I'm all, and then Tua, right? Like, no one's talking. Tua just broke the slate last week. Right. And no one's talking about him this week because his price went up a little bit, and he still has the same electric weapons, and Chicago is still a bad defense.
There's some tough weather there, right?
Yeah, a little wind.
I just dropped it in chat. Kevin Roth, it's in the yellow. Winds around 15 miles per hour, sustained for most of the game. A bit over that by kickoff, a bit less by the second half. Winds will gust to around 25 miles per hour. Minor impacts. I should add that winds will be strongest pregame. So if you see scary pregame video, know that it won't be quite that bad in the game. So, yeah, there's a little bit of wind, potentially gust up to 25. So it's not like the way it was yesterday with Ohio State, at Northwestern. It won't be like that egregious, but something. And a couple of questions here in chat. Well, the question they're asking about Justin Fields in tournaments and can you play him naked? I think you can play him naked. I think he's cheap enough just because he can get there the legs. And I don't know who you pair him with. Chase Claypool, they said 10 to 35 snaps or something like that. If you want to be ambitious, I suppose you can do that, but I don't think I'm doing that. Komet finally caught a touchdown, but I don't think I'm chasing that. Mooney, I guess, but not really. And then they were asking in chat, this is for you, Bobby. Fields, give your thoughts on Fields. Fields versus Brady. And then anything else as far as quarterback, feel free to throw out there. There's a lot of names out there. And I would just say there's two quarterbacks that have, West Coast to East Coast, 1 o'clock game, daylight savings, all sorts of goofiness messing around with the clock for the Chargers and the Raiders. Two teams that perennially just always seem to disappoint. And Herbert's a weird one too. I can't figure that one out because, the matchup against Atlanta in a dome against inferior, corners there in Atlanta, they're beat up. But he's throwing the dudes that Josh Palmer, I guess, is his number one receiver. DeAndre Carter, Michael Bandy, Gerald Everett seems pretty solid. Or maybe Austin Eckler just catches 97 passes today. I don't know what to do with Herbert, but theoretically it's a good spot.
There are a bunch of different guys around Fields. I don't know why everyone's on Fields so much. There are a bunch of different guys around Fields that have better props. You could go to Goff. You could go to Kirky, hit on Trevor Lawrence. Even Taylor Heineke has much better passing and rushing yards. I don't understand I know Miami's defense has been terrible, but I don't really understand the love for Fields.
Bobby's better of late.
Bobby's a big prop guy. Did you hit the Derek Carty over Davis Mills where he had him projected for 270, and it was the over under was like 213.
I did not know.
A lot of people were upset in the chat over that.
Did it just miss? I don't know. I don't know.
No, it was not even close.
Okay.
And he had him like a 70 yards over his prop from the blitz projection.
When you see a lot of people, do you mean yourself?
No, not me. I didn't touch it, but I know people who did, and I went into the blitz chat, and everyone, they were like, "I'm dropping the hammer on this 70 yards." Just can't lose.
Bobby, give your thoughts as far anything you want as far as quarterback. But
Gino, Kyler, I think are really good plays. I really like that game for just as a game stack in tournaments like that. If I was to whittle it down, like just stacking that game at the quarterback position, I think I would be fine with. I'm having issues kind of getting down my player pool at quarterback. But Gino and Kyler would kick it off. And then from there, like Herbert, the whole situation, the passing game is very condensed. So it makes it really easy if you want to play him. I think Mariota's in play, but if I'm looking at the props, like Mariota doesn't have the greatest props, so I don't know.
His passing yards like 170 or something.
Yeah, his props aren't great. He'd have to. I don't think he could carry 2 to a bonus. So maybe he might be taking him off. Just unclicked him as we're kind of talking here. Taylor Heineke, I do like a little bit. Like I like McLaurin a ton. I think Logan Thomas is someone that you can consider at 2,900, and everybody's going to play that dusty Brock Wright guy. So, and I like the run back with Jefferson. I think he's very interesting. Burrow's guys all look good. Like he's going to come in low owned. Don't mind a Terrence Marshall or DJ Moore run back. If I had to rank them though, it'd be Kyler, Gino, Heineke for me, and then maybe Burrow.
Did Wright officially clear protocol as far as
first of all? Wright is probably opposite of Dusty, right? Like this guy's never had any run. He's never had any run.
No, he's bad. Is he good?
We played him last year. There was like a week where I played last year,
right? At one point, where we had him.
He was like a chalky play last year, undrafted out of Notre Dame. And there's also like the people want to play the guy behind him. And I'm not certain if he passed. People are excited about James Mitchell, who I'm not aware of. I just know people think he's good if he has the opportunity. And tight end, it's a slew of guys, Hayden Hurst and Evan Ingram and Robert Tonyan. And we assume Waller's going to be out. So Moreau is also in play. I think Everett, just because he might be the best pass catcher outside of Eckler on the Chargers team. So I think he's pretty interesting as well. So I don't know. Just because Wright's 2.5 on DK, I guess people are going to go there, and he's probably the de facto one now with Hawkinson gone in Detroit. I don't know. I'm curious what our ownership is because I don't think we have Wright like popping as like a huge ownership chunk, but maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe
it just comes down to the game environment, and you don't need him to do much at 2,500. Yeah. And tight end is just so weak. This in general, it's like that. What's the real how bad could it be? Because who's going to put up 20 plus on you in at the tight ends? Yeah, I know. I want to know if I can chase him.
I don't know if you're playing as a run back. Like there's some cheap run backs in the Jets, I suppose, but you're not really playing Allen. Doesn't sound like, at least not in your main lineup. I don't know if you're playing just a la carte without any bills. That seems kind of weird to me. I'm
fade Josh Allen is going to be like 100% owned on Yahoo and all the cash and stuff over there. I'm not playing him.
Well, it's probably easy to make him work, right? I assume it's not a huge.
Yeah, Neon Dion is $10 min price.
There you go. Yeah, there's an opportunity cost of running back, and that's a good segue because I kind of mentioned before, like FanDuel, he's $5K, and it's hard to get away from that. DK, it's not that much more for the really good running backs. And, Eckler, again, he's going to get everything today for the Chargers. Ramondre Stevenson, the absence of Harris, he's going to take control of that lineup. We saw him before when the backfield was entirely his. Etienne, that's essentially his backfield as well there. Jacksonville. Somebody in chat was talking about Mixon. Yeah, he hasn't been spectacular, but the role's still really, really strong. They're a favorite today. Aaron Jones against Detroit in the Dome. Awesome, awesome play. If you want to get squirrely, I guess you can play Dylan. Jacobs can be a bounce back spot. It's just really, really strong. And guys like Dalvin Cook are just not going to get played. It's both Minnesota, Jefferson too. Like both those guys just going to completely lost in the slate. I yield to you, Bobby. Though, like, what's your rundown as far as running back? And I feel like you got to get these right. Like last week, you had to get them right. There were so many that did so well. You can't screw this up. Who are you prioritizing?
Yeah, so Ramondre, I think he's pretty much like if you're playing MME, you're like 80% to a lock on Ramondre. ETN, like you worry about the injury risk, but it's his backfield. His targets, what I do worry about is his just like overall opportunity in terms of like the passing game. So I think like if you're playing Lawrence, you don't have to, and you're trying to leverage it, you don't have to play ETN, but I'm still going to be overweight on ETN. He looks really good. He's like coming right behind Austin Eckler in terms of just at his price. Like him and Eckler are pretty close for what we're projecting. So I don't know. It'd be ETN, Eckler, Stevenson, Aaron Jones. Those would be guys I'd really be targeting. I think you can make a case for Deion Jackson. I think that a lot of the time in that game with versus the Patriots, if Ellinger's going to throw, it's going to be a lot of dump offs. Deion Jackson's, he's very good in space. He's an electric guy, so I don't mind going to him. People are making a case for Mostert. I'm going to have him in my player pool. Just the Bears have been really hit by running backs, but I do worry about like them just letting Wilson get going. It's Wilson, right? Who they traded for?
Yeah, and he's familiar with McDonald's.
He's familiar with McDaniel, yeah. And so I do worry about that a little bit. And then Kenneth Walker, Homer didn't play last week. He's in that great game environment. I think he's very much in play. Those are the guys I'm kind of targeting. Mixon's the guy that's tough for me because he's like, I don't think he's so bad. Like he's just atrocious. But if he's due, like he has a very good ceiling projection, I think we have in terms of the blitz. So I don't know. I have him. I'm debating on whether I'm going to play him or not.
In ownership wise, like Stevenson, we got a 40%, Etienne 35, Walker 23, Foreman. We didn't mention Foreman. That guy runs hard, man. And that backfield has once again today. 19% for Foreman, 15% for Mixon, Jackson 15%. This is DK for what it's worth. Like 14% Aaron Jones. I love that. McKissick is gone in Washington, so Gibson's getting a bump to 12%. Didn't even mention him yet. Eckler, just because price is hard to get to, but 8.8 at 12% ownership. Jacob 7.3, 11% ownership. Mostert at 8%. Like I said, Cook at 6, just going to be ignored. Fournette at 5. He's been scuffling, but theoretically, there's a game there. We'll see. Jamal Williams, he might end up getting 60% of those snaps in Detroit. He used to play for Green Bay, if that does anything for you. Who knows what Swift, but I'm having a hard time trusting Swift. I'm not playing Swift today. We'll see. Sort through this, Kirkwood, because there's so much good stuff at running back. I love a lot of these names. You can only roster so many. And also, are you finding that your utility player is almost always a running back? It's hard not to make it a running back, and I guess that's a good way to be a little bit different just lineup construction-wise. Force another receiver in there. Is that something?
Yeah, that's what I did last week. So that was the key. Is I had Dante Foreman and Pollard, and then I played Garrett Wilson in the flex. So I'm definitely fine with doing that again today. I mean, you just got to hit. But there's a lot of good plays here. I mean, Ramondre is like a lock, in my opinion. He's just so good, first of all, and like he's finally going to have the entire backfield to himself. He lost a little bit of work last week with Harris, and he still had a 73% workload, 24 touches, 25% target share. Like, Indy has been a good matchup for running backs that catch passes too, and that's Ramondre's specialty. So, they've allowed the 7 most receptions to running backs. So 8th most fantasy points per game to running backs. So Ramondre a lock for me. I want to play Aaron Jones. I know everyone's like, oh, he's a split backfield. Like, it's not. Aaron Jones gets the high value touches, right? This is like the nut matchup. We see it every time. This is what they want to do with their offense. They need a win. Lions allowed the 4th most fantasy points to running backs. He's heating up. He's looking great. He's 28-22 fantasy points last year. He's got so much touchdown equity. And he's averaged, even in like the timeshare, he's averaged over 70% of the snaps the last 2 games. So I love Aaron Jones, and I'm trying to fit him. And then to do that, I got to play a guy like Neon Dion, who I'm fine with. I played him, and he was great in that last game. But that's a little bit concerning that they have. They've got Lindsey. They called up again.
Jordan Wilkins is available.
Didn't they just get Zach Moss? Yeah,
I don't know if he's going to be active, but
so if he's not active, I feel much better about him if he's not active, and I don't think he will be.
Well, if Moss isn't active, Wilkins will be. Is kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I just feel better with, like, we've seen it before. I just feel better that he's going to get all the passing work and stuff, and he's going to be the lead back. So I'll be on him for sure. Definitely on Yahoo. Probably on DK. We'll see if the one I want to talk about is Joe Mixon. I mean, the guy sucks. He's so inefficient.
Opportunity matters more than anything.
And their offensive line is terrible. But the thing about him is he just got 9 targets, right? Again, and that can just add up and add up and add up. And if he gets in pay dirt in the end zone, then he can pay off. But like, I want to fade him for sure. I would much rather Travis Etienne. And you saw, I mean, the Raiders couldn't stop Kamara at all, right? Like, the guy went absolutely nuclear. Like, I'm expecting Travis Etienne to have a pretty good game. Eckler, I would love. I'm not going to get to him. I just can't do it with the Bill. I'm playing Kyler, so it's just too much for me. I can't get there.
If you were MMEing, though, you'd be overweight on Eckler.
For sure.
Yeah.
Or at least like with the field. I love Dante Foreman. I'm fine with it. If I can play Dante Foreman and also play the Carolina D, let's go. I like that. Like Foreman is good, let's and he's looked good in each of his last 2. And, he looked good with Chuba Hubbard out there, and then he wasn't out there, and he was awesome last week. I owe him a lot for helping me out last week, so gotta keep a seat open for him this week. I'm totally good with him. Antonio Gibson is interesting with McKissick being out, adding pass game work. I kind of think he gets a bad rap. I think he's, a little bit better than people think, but I get it. Brian Robinson is the one they want to go to, like, for the lead, just being the lead running back. So it's interesting because I think he's going to get the passing game work, and if that's the case, he could be good, especially if they're behind in game script. But there's a lot of other guys here too. Like, no one's going to play Dalvin Cook, and Dalvin Cook has looked really good lately. Has come on over the last 3 games. Kenneth Walker, I'm out on. I don't know. Those are my thoughts. But like, even Michael, nah. I was thinking maybe Michael Carter, but
so it's just announced that Robinson's going to play. For the record, there was a chance he wasn't going to play, but James Robinson expected to go, which I think hurts Carter a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I was expecting him not to play.
Yeah, that's why he was kind of in my head, just possibly as a run back. Maybe a guy can catch 7 or 8 passes if they're down. The sharps tell me, Kirkwood, and you know what I like about your analysis? I can build your lineup in my head. Like, if I'm paying attention and people are watching and paying attention, the one you could have made. Well, never mind. So I know you're playing Kyler. I feel really confident you're playing Hopkins. You're playing Ramondre. You're playing Neon Dion Jackson. You're playing the Jets defense. I'm building your lineup in my head. This is and I feel like you're staring right at it. You sort of run it off, and if people are paying attention, they can kind of sort of hear what you're doing. But one thing the sharps tell me, and I don't agree with this. I understand the thought process, but I don't like it as a hard and fast rule, and it sounds like you don't either.
Is you can't play Ramondre and Neon Dion together.
You can definitely play them together.
I hate that rule.
It comes down to price, right? Yeah. Like, yes, is there like some ceiling sacrifice? Kind of. Okay, so if Ramondre nukes in this game, right, and the Pats rush out to a big lead and he gets like 2 touchdowns right off the bat, right? What are they going to be doing? They're going to be passing to Dion. Dion. It's Neon Dion is what I call him. So
not going to be passing the Mo Alley Cox.
I mean, they just don't have much, and they don't have a good quarterback. Like, it just makes too much sense for them to just screen, and he looked good when the last situation like this. So I think it's not like any of them are 8K here, and you have to worry about that. It's pricing; they're cheap, so you absolutely can play them.
We got to move on. As always, we're pressed for time. Open up receivers for us, Bobby. There's no clear and obvious jump off the page plays when everything is factored in for me. A lot of good, fine plays. So you tell me, is there anybody clearly standing out as like this is the best play at receiver?
I really like Hopkins. Just love that game environment. I think he makes you can stack him obviously with Kyler, and then you can run him back with Geno. Another one for me is Justin Jefferson. Going to have a lot of him. Like that Washington game. I know the total's gone down a point, but still like Justin Jefferson. He does well when they're favorites, so don't mind him. Tyler Lockett and DJ Metcalf, two other receivers in that Arizona and Seattle game. Now, a couple weeks ago, this game was chalk and it busted in Seattle. Now we're in the Dome in Arizona. I want to have exposure to that game. Devontae Adams, I'm going to be over on him. Just makes sense, right? He had the flu last week. If people don't want to play him this week, that's fine with me. I'm going to play him. Christian Kirk, I think he makes for good leverage off ETN and Lawrence stacks, so I'm going to be over on him. Terry McLaurin, I like him a ton as a run back with Jefferson, and I'm on St. Brown, ASB. I think ASB is a phenomenal play on the slate, so he's going to be a guy I'm going to go out on my way to get to as well.
I think he might be the most popular receiver when all is said and done.
It's still probably warranted, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just I think just kind of messing around with and running optimals. He's landing in on both FanDuel and on DK. The price is pretty good. So do you have a favorite receiver on the Chargers? Is that a trick question?
So on the Chargers, it's Palmer. Eckler kind of counts as a receiver, right?
Yeah, sure. I guess.
Palmer's a very strong play. I like Carter as well, but Gerald Everett is someone I'm trying to be over the field on at the tight end position.
Kirkwood, what do you got? What do you want to add here as far as receivers? A lot of names thrown out there. Who do you want to add to the conversation? Who do you want to stress? Are you running back one of these Seattle receivers in your Arizona stack? And if so, who?
Yeah, so I was gonna run back Lockett. Now the only thing is, if I can't I'm toying with the idea of not even having a run back if I like the other plays. Because I'm slamming this mainly. It's in some large field stuff, but mainly I do the high dollar, smaller field GPP stuff. So 400, 300, 200 entry stuff like that. And I don't think you need to run it back, but I prefer to run it back. So Lockett will be my guy. The other than that, Tyreek is the. So what I'm also looking at Yahoo. I got to do my main build, and I'm kind of crazy. Everyone's gonna play Chris Godwin's because he's cheap, but I'm kind of thinking about jamming in Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, and Devontae Adams, and
where are you saving?
At running back and at quarterback.
And tight end?
And tight end. Yeah, I can't fit Pitts. That's the problem. But, can I play Foster Moreau? Can I go to Conklin?
Is there a $20 quarterback that's usable in Yahoo this week?
No. You already know who I'm playing.
Yeah, Kyler.
But, I'm playing Kyler. So that's 31. So you get some significant savings. Other than that, the down low for QB over there, I don't really like much because there's just not much. Aaron Rodgers at 27 is possible. You could play. I'm not playing Jared Goff. So the long story short is no. There's no super cheap one that I feel comfortable with. I guess the cheapest one would be Aaron Rodgers.
Dan's got a question in chat. I don't know how to answer this. They're all good. Cup, ETN versus Tyreek and Aaron Jones. So four of my favorite plays in the slate. I don't know. Do you have a lean there?
Hill Jones for me.
Yeah, it's.
What was the other one? Cup and ETN.
Yeah, it's both really good. It's probably Hill Jones. Cup of that he was dinged last week. I don't know.
Unless you want to outsmart yourself and say the weather and maybe he's not going to get an accurate deep ball and You know, the thing is with him, and JSU pointed out on our show too, is that so the thing with Tyreek Hill, his numbers are ridiculous, and he hasn't scored any freaking touchdowns. Only 2 touchdowns on the season. He's first in receiving yards, first in receptions, first in air yards, second in target share. He's like every metric off the charts except for touchdowns. And some of that is because they've just missed him. They've underthrown him, and he has to come back and catch these, contested balls, which he gets, which is crazy because he's short, and God bless him, and short people got to live too. You know what I mean? Short. There's too much short shaming out there, Dean. Too much short shaming.
There is a lot of that.
Yes, and start up a nonprofit. Kirkwood, give me your favorite cheap receiver. I'm talking like
so that's
Raymond.
That's what I wanted to talk about. That's what I wanted because I don't know. I'm lying if I that's my problem. I want to figure it out with you guys. So I need one. So if I could have Josh Palmer at 5,100, he's a wide receiver 1 against Atlanta, who's missing their best, best coverage player, and so it's a great matchup for him. So he's 5,100. So he would be my preference, but unfortunately I'm in the situation where I got to go a little lower. So
I've heard Terrence Marshall. I've heard Tyquan
Marshall a good bit.
None of this was great.
So I'll tell you, I'm there. I'm down between Khalif Raymond, Zay Jones, Revenge, by the way.
Oh wow, that's right, yeah.
And Tyquan Thornton.
Oof,
all the way down.
What about Bourne? Any Bourne love?
Ooh, I didn't even think.
Bourne's right above Thornton. Everyone's playing Thornton. They played similar amount of snaps. Neither.
You know what? They say everyone's playing Thornton. I don't think everyone's playing Thornton.
It's because I think that earlier in the week.
I know because there's a popular show who's pitching Thornton, right? But I still think you got to click on that name, and it's hard to click. Everyone gets that.
I would just much rather click Bourne.
Yeah, I hear that. But I don't know. I mean, from an athletic standpoint, Thornton is light years ahead of.
I've seen Thornton.
The floor is 0 on that guy.
Correct. It is. But Devontae Parker's out. He got a ton of snaps, and he's a big play threat. So it's it makes a lot of sense. It's not the same situation as it's been. It's a different situation with Parker out.
Eric and Squirrel are not. I don't mean to cut you off, but we got to keep the show moving. Eric and Squirrel knocking on the door. We're getting out of here in a few minutes. If you don't want to mess with the likes of Khalif Raymond and Thornton and all these nonsense receivers, may I suggest you play over at Stat Hero. If you're not aware of Stat Hero, it's a unique fantasy sports platform that allows users to compete only against the house, not against other players, not against Kirkwood, not against Bobby, not against those in chat who are hitting that like button. Kindly hit that like button. Do subscribe, turn on those notifications. Stat Hero, how that works is you participate in a head-to-head style contest where Stat Hero is going to provide a lineup that you just have to beat with your very own pick'em style contest as well. Check out the Big Dime League. That's a season-long leaderboard NFL contest up to $50,000 in prizes. You can also enter that one all season long. The pros, the promo code, get you all started. The nice sweet fat deposit bonus. Use the promo code GRINDERS. That's GRINDERS. 50% deposit bonus up to $250. Jump into the action today at Stat Hero. Bobby, we got to be quick as far as tight ends. Obviously everybody's basically pretty cheap. Tunyon looks like he's in a pretty good spot. He's been getting a lot of targets of late. Expected to get Lazard back in Green Bay. Evan Ingram, Gerald Everett, theoretically gets a few more thrown his way with the absence of real receivers for the Chargers. Foster Moreau, we assume Waller is going to be out. Do you have any favorites amongst the tight ends?
It's Everett and Pitts for me at tight end that I'm trying to attack. I also think that the guy that's pretty interesting is Logan Thomas down at 2,900. I just think he's going to see more targets than what he saw last week. Tanyan obviously makes sense. He's going to be chalky, so I just try to play him differently. TJ Hawkinson, too, at 5K. I don't want to play Hawk, but you don't know how they're going to utilize him. They said he was going to be a full go, so I think you can consider him. Moreau is Waller. We got news Waller's out. Yep.
I mean, the speculation, we'll get it in 10 minutes, but the assumption is he's not going to play. That's what I saw.
Okay. So yeah, if he's out, I think Moreau's fine. Conklin at 3,200, Kirky and me both kind of whiffed on this last week, but seeing 10 targets, I don't mind going to him in a game that the Jets probably could be trailing. Anyone else? Like Cade Otton at 3,100 if Braid sits, just because, I don't know, just because I really don't have like the best. And then Hayden Hurst at 3,600. You're taking out Chase. Like there's a lot of usage to go around, so I don't mind Hurst as well.
General thought, we didn't really talk about Cincinnati a lot, and like they kind of busted last time out, and they also overpriced their receivers, but theoretically there's some opportunity there, and they're probably going to be underowned. Kirkwood tight ends.
Who the hell cares at this point? Like Tyler Higbee, look from like a usage standpoint, looks like the guy, but man, that guy has stone hands. So I had to do a swap for him last week to try to beat people that I was behind, and he dropped that 61-yard easy touchdown he had just like for no reason. But Evan Ingram's usage has been good recently, but like, and there is, I don't think anyone's really chalky. It's like tight end's going to be like all spread out everywhere this week. Gerald Everett is the best if you can afford him. I mean, the opportunity is just there for him. Foster Moreau, I'm totally fine with. Conklin, Hayden Hurst. I really don't care about tight end, to be honest with you. Maybe even like Hunter Henry, maybe Cole Kmet.
Are you looking at the screen, Kirkwood? We have Pitts. Somebody hit the lock button on Pitts. I don't know if that's a sign, if it's subliminal or not, but the lock button has been hit on Kyle Pitts for some reason. I don't know if producer Steve's messing around with stuff, but I mean, it's gonna be a bad day for your boy if that's the case. He might be the best like raw points projected tight end right now, to be honest. But we do have to step aside. I want to get to your favorite game stack, Bobby, and give me your favorite defense as well as we yield to Squirrel Patrol and Erik coming in shortly.
Favorite game stack, Arizona, Seattle. Very simple. And what was the other one you asked for?
Defense. This is your segment. You got 20 seconds on defense.
That's D. Kirky's with me too, I think.
Oh, so
I don't love. I just want to say I don't love. I'm playing Jets D, and I don't love it. Okay, I don't love it.
Yeah, it's a salary cap reason. I understand. That's apparently the Swolecast lineup that producer Steve is showing off. So, yeah, check out the Swolecast channel. Feel free to like and subscribe over there as well. Kirkwood, your favorite stack? I mean, I assume you're just going to stick with your Cardinals.
Yeah, it's Kyler. This is the day I make money with Kyler Murray. It's going to happen.
As far as so Panthers going to be pretty popular on DK, as are the Bucks. I think the Dolphins are the de facto defense on FanDuel. I want to say they're 3-6 over there. If you have the salary, get up to the Bills, something like that. But all right, Erik and Squirrel, whatever we didn't talk about, they're going to talk about. No reason to go anywhere else. Just stay on this stream. They're going to pop up just a few minutes. Win some money today. That's Bobby. That's Kirkwood. Kirkwood's winning six figures today. He's going to do it again. It's going to happen. We're all going to win some money today. Enjoy the football. Thanks for watching. Don't go anywhere. Here comes Squirrel and Erik.
We're here back at the Fantasy Bar with your pints and picks for Week 9, presented by BetMGM. Head over there, use promo code GRINDERS. That's going to get you a risk-free bet up to $1,000. Now sit back, grab your favorite pint while I give you my favorite picks for Week 9. All right, another split for us last week. Almost swept the board. Easy one with Tennessee. Gave you Detroit plus 3.5. They end up losing by 4. Hopefully you guys got a 4-point line on it, but brings us to 7-3 over the last 5 weeks, so let's stay hot. All right, first pick for you this week. We are going with a home underdog. We're rolling with the Washington Commanders plus 3 against Minnesota. Now, Washington on a nice little roll here. Has won and covered each of the last 3. Chase Young back at practice as well. We'll see if he's back in the lineup here. But even him back at practice adds a little energy here. The Vikings on the other side, things look rosy. 6-1. They acquired TJ Hawkinson. But let's dig into some of the numbers here. Minnesota just 2-5 against the spread over their last 7. Rowan Gabe 3-4 against the number this season, and they've only covered once in their last 5 on the road. So been bad on the road, been bad against the number. The underdog has owned this series, covering 8 of the last 11. I think we make it 9 out of 12. Roll with Washington, plus the 3. All right, next game for us, we are rolling with the Tampa Bay Bucks at home, -3 against LA. Now this one definitely a battle of the disappointments. Both these teams have been terrible against the spread and in real life. LA, though, 2-5 against the number here, where Tampa Bay 4-1 in their last 5 at home against the number, against a team with a losing record here. I just have much more faith in Tom Brady and company to figure this out than Matthew Stafford, who's playing banged up, Sean McVay. Just things that look ugly here for the Rams. I don't think they figure it out here, traveling west to east for this game against the Tampa Bay Bucks. And the betting splits here, courtesy of my friends at Scores and Odds, huge in favor of Tampa Bay. 56% of the bets here on Tampa Bay about split, but a whopping 88% of the money backing the Bucks. I'm with the money here. Give me Tampa Bay -3. All right, that'll do it for week 9 here in the Fantasy Bar with our pints and picks. Remember, promo code GRINDERS over at BetMGM. Take advantage of that risk-free bet up to $1,000 for BetMGM, for Scores and Odds, for RotoGrinders.com. I am Beer saying salut, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Best of luck with your bets, and we'll see you next week.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to week 9 GPP Final Takes on RotoGrinders.com. As pretty much always, I'm your host, Erik Beimfohr. You can find me on Twitter at Erik Beimfohr. And this week, first repeat guest, I think, of the year on this show. So that's a high bar. That's a high bar to live up to. But my good friend John Breslin, aka SquirrelPatrol, I'm gonna kick it to you first. I'm gonna let you give the opening prologue about this slate, because it feels kind of like a doozy in a weird, I don't know about bad, but in a unique way. How are you feeling about this week 9 tournament slate?
I think it's a cozy little 10-game slate. I think this is
cozy is a good word.
Slate of the year. I was saying on the Friday show I do with JM that it feels like an extended Thanksgiving slate. Like it really does make a difference having 10 games versus like 13, 14. And it's an interesting slate because there's really no teams that are like totally off the board. There's no, like, some of the slates are binary, right? Like you're just making a decision, am I going to stack the Bills and Chiefs or not? There's no game like that this week where it's like a 54-point total and that it's a binary decision like that. There's also no game with like the 32-point total or whatever, right? Like, no team with the implied point total of like 14 points where it's like, oh, we got to just like, load up on the opposing defense. There's no first-time rookie quarterback making, first-time NFL start or anything like that.
Yep.
So it's wide open, but there's only 10 games. So like the average ownership on quarterbacks will be 5%, which is higher, than a 14, 13 game slate. So I like it. I think it's a great slate.
I think so too. I think the interesting thing is that despite the small slate, the running back position is quite loaded, and the overwhelming majority of those running back plays on both sites are within, setting aside basically Deion Jackson on FanDuel, who's 5K. You have to treat him a little bit differently on FanDuel than you do, say, on DraftKings. From him to Joe Mixon-ish range or whatever, it's like all these guys lumped in within $1,000, and there's a lot of good plays in there. You mentioned your Friday show with JM on the Friday show that I do with the Podfather with the player profiler guys. We used I used Michael Carter as an example of a guy who, like, honestly, I won't even consider him today, but on some other slates, particularly some other 10-game slates, and I shouldn't say I won't consider him, but you know what I mean? He's very low on the totem pole, maybe in a Bills stack or something. But he would be a guy without Breece Hall where we would be like, oh man, I know the matchup's tough, but he's 5,500 and he catches passes. He's maybe like in cash game consideration. He's like the 15th best running back on this slate, despite the fact that there's only 10 games. And that creates some interesting tournament decision making because, like you said, a lot of the running backs that are in the best spots are also the best stacks, or you have a teammate that is also in a really good spot. So jump to the Panthers. Let's talk about the Panthers really quickly, just because I do think, oddly enough, one of the worst offenses in the end, or used to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL, is kind of a pivotal decision point today. The Bengals defense is quite banged up. They lost DJ Reader on the defensive line recently, which has really hurt their run defense. And now they're down 2 starting corners. They're only 2 good starting corners. That like their secondary is in shambles, and you have DJ Moore, who's underpriced, frankly, on both sides, and you have Donta Foreman without Chuba Hubbard in a kind of a workhorse role. They're not necessarily the one, 1A, 1B of exact decision making on this slate, but they're a good example of how are you treating those 2 guys when they're on the same offense and they both project well and they both have a good matchup and all that kind of thing. Let's kick us off with the Panthers.
So the Panthers are interesting because they have a concentrated offense, right? Yeah, so it's like Donta Foreman and they're cheap, and like DJ Moore and Tyrus Marshall is starting to enter the conversation. They're not a team I'm going to go overboard with because there's a lot of value on the week, like a lot of good plays on the week. But like Foreman and DJ Moore are definitely in the conversation, and the offense has looked a lot better with PJ Walker. Since he took over for Baker Mayfield, and I don't even know if Sam Darnold got to play.
No.
Since taking over for Baker Mayfield, like the offense looks better with PJ Walker. I like the Cincinnati side of that game because people aren't really talking about that at all. Like Joe Mixon, T. Higgins, because they're missing a major piece with Jamar Chase, and we don't know how it's gonna trickle down. You've got a really weak tight end position. So I mean, the tight end position is actually like you're missing Mark Andrews, you're missing Travis Kelce. The number of guys who are not on the slate are always significant. So looking like the most expensive tight end, I think, is 5,100.
Zach Ertz. Yeah. Zach Ertz for 5,100. That which is kind of bizarre. Like, okay, I'll pay 5,100 for my 12 PPR points or whatever.
Yeah. So Hayden Hurst is in the conversation because he's a big red zone target now with Jamar Chase out. That's one of the more interesting games that I don't think is getting talked about a lot. You brought up the running back position, and I think that the pricing is actually very important to pay attention to when you're looking at the different sites like FanDuel versus DraftKings. Because you do have the Deion Jackson situation on FanDuel. He's only 5,000, and I challenge you to find a running back less than 5,000 that's even in the conversation. Like usually it's guys who aren't even seeing the field. I think like Sony Michel might be the next best running back at 5,000 or less on FanDuel. So Deion Jackson's like a much more interesting play on FanDuel. On DraftKings, you kind of have 3 guys that I'm pretty interested in: Ramondre Stevenson, Travis Etienne, and Aaron Jones. And I think Stevenson's a much better play on DraftKings. He's the cheapest of the 3 on DraftKings, whereas I think he's in the middle on FanDuel. And Aaron Jones is 1,000 more on DraftKings. So Aaron Jones is a much better play on FanDuel. And like just running my lineups on FanDuel, I'm getting a ton of like Deion Jackson and Aaron Jones. Whereas on DraftKings, Jones is a little bit more expensive, and Etienne and Stevenson kind of rise to the top.
I'm glad you kind of walked through that. And really quick, some quick housekeeping. A, if you have not watched this show before, thank you for joining us. Hit the like button. It'll really help us out. But B, we're going to kind of not go maybe your traditional game by game, your traditional position by position. We're going to hit on a lot of games and we're going to hit on every position, but we're going to try to bounce around to a lot of the most kind of important tournament narratives of the day, right? The running back position being a huge one this week, I think, and John really outlined perfect kind of the dichotomy between both sites. But honestly, I think you also hit it at the top. You could stack almost every one of these games, I think, in tournaments, and they're all like the same. And Josh Allen is the one like separator at quarterback on both sites, right? And particularly on FanDuel, then his ownership's going to be notable. But I really think, like, honestly, if you wanted to sell me like the Carolina-Cincy game, great example. Consolidated offenses, no Jamar Chase, no Christian McCaffrey, no Robbie Anderson, no Chuba Hubbard. All the plays look good. All the plays project well, but nobody's really playing Burrow stacks with a bring back or both. onslaught the game. That's just one example where the slate is so wide open, but it kind of comes down to that running back position, right? Like, what are you doing at running back? You do play DJ Moore, maybe you play Tyreek Hill or whatever. Now what do I got to listen to what John was talking about with the running backs and be smart about each site. And the final kind of cherry on top of the running back position is, I think it's fascinating because of what you said. I can get Aaron Jones at a little bit lower ownership on DraftKings just by spending another $1,000. Okay, so I can't get Tyreek Hill. I got to play Mike Evans instead. I'm just throwing names out there, right? I gotta save that $1,000 to get from Ramondre to Aaron Jones on DraftKings, and then instead of playing a chalkier, like I said, whatever, Tyreek Hill, I'm gonna go to it. It almost instantly makes you more unique by these little 2v2s of kind of manipulating the sites in a weird way, right? So playing the more expensive guy like Aaron Jones on DraftKings, frankly, where he's also better suited from a pass catching standpoint, and paying a little bit more for him and being like, look, I mean, I love Travis Etienne as much as everybody today, but like, then maybe I start to leverage off of him. The pass game looks good too. I think being really cognizant of how you treat the running back position is kind of where this whole slate starts and almost ends, because it can lead you to your stacks too, right? You don't play Travis Etienne. Maybe now this is a Jags Raiders, pass game stack or whatever. And boom, instantly that lineup is totally contrarian. So I like thinking about it that way, like through the lens of the running back.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a crazy week because you can stack almost every game, almost every quarterback. Like I was saying, like Josh Allen, yeah, it's a clear differentiator, but then like you drop down $2,500 on DraftKings, and from 5,000 to 6,000, there's just multiple quarterbacks that you can
everybody
stack, like great game environments, like
yep.
like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Geno Smith, Stafford, Derek Carr. Maybe my favorite, like Justin Fields, right? 5,300.
Yeah, he's running like crazy. Yep.
And it leads me to it's an interesting week for stacking, because I think you can stack Justin Fields with Tyreek Hill, and that makes a lot of sense. And you can stack like Austin Eckler with Marcus Mariota, and that makes some sense. And one of these running backs could like Eckler could break the slate with like 12 receptions, right? He could get 12 receptions, get the receiving yard, 100-yard bonus, and that ends up breaking the slates. And maybe you're pairing him with like a cheaper Mariota rather than a Justin Herbert.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, or like Mariota, Eckler, and Josh Palmer, and then you're maybe using like Kyle Pitts, the kind of weakish tight end position. So you don't necessarily need to like stack every. There's a lot of cheap quarterbacks, and you don't necessarily need to stack them with like their primary wide receiver. You can stack them with like the opposing team's wide receiver, or the opposing team's running back, even in some situations on DraftKings, trying to get the receptions, the point per reception.
I totally love that. Fields is the one that's like the easiest. He is almost all his value comes from rushing, but he's just an example of. Again, I'm going to name some names that, like, frankly, most of them I'm not going to play, but it's only because I don't. You have to draw a line in the sand somewhere. I can't play every single, you can't cover every single square, but it's like, dude, if you told me Ramondre doesn't smash, but the Patriots score 35 points, it's like, I don't know, Mac Jones, Jacoby Myers stacks are really cheap, and I can get, you want Eckler, you want Tyreek, you want all this, by all means, you want a super cheap Deion Jackson run back on those stacks, you got it. That's not even like in consideration for anybody, but I could tell you a story as to why on this given slate, not every slate, right? A month ago, these are some of the things that we would never mention. Marcus Mariota naked with Austin Eckler, like, what are you talking about? But I really do think the Fields, the naked Fields with the Dolphins makes a ton of sense. Mariota with Eckler, or like you said, Mariota, Eckler, Palmer, or Everett, include Pitts if you do want to stack. DeAndre Carter, like there's a lot of goodness in that game, but I think the quarterback thing is like the opposite of running back, where like the slate starts and ends at running back, or the slate, like it literally starts at running back. It ends at quarterback, where you're like, okay, give me everything else in my lineup, and then let's see what the quarterback thing looks like. Do you want some Josh Allen? Sure. Do you want some Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray, whatever? Sure. But for me, like making my decisions on just a small collection of lineups, I'm kind of taking that approach that you mentioned. Like it's going to be the Fields, Lawrence, Mariota, Carr, all those guys that are like almost at 5K minimum. Like we have half the slate of quarterbacks is under 6K. Like I'm just going to live there. So it's kind of like I said, the inverse. I'm going to hit some of you guys questions, and then we'll dive into some games to, if we say you can stack every game, we probably need to hit on some of them that we might like a little bit better than the other ones, but I'll hit some of you guys questions really quick. Mr. Richard, how about let's talk about this one then really quickly to hit on a question and hit on a game to stack. I really like this game from a game stack perspective. And I think it's because everyone is going to play the running backs if they're going to play anybody, when in reality, it's not that the running backs aren't in good matchups. They are, but it's kind of what we talked about before. It's like, well, DJ Moore's in a good matchup, but so is Donta Foreman. It's like ETN's in a great matchup, but like the Raiders have the second worst DVOA pass defense in the league. It's the worst pass defense in the league is the Lions. The second worst pass defense is the Raiders, but nobody's playing Lawrence, Ingram, Kirk, Zay, Marvin, or whatever, because we're focused on ETN. And I get that. And then off the stinker, the Raiders is like, we'll get Foster Moreau. I assume I haven't been following all the inactives. I assume Darren Waller is officially out. We'll get Foster Moreau, but everybody's out on Devontae Adams. Everybody's out on Derek Carr. Everybody's out on that pass game. And like, it's the Jaguars. Russell Wilson finally had a good game against the Jaguars defense. So what do you think about this one for tournaments?
I love this game because people aren't talking about it enough. I was talking about Devontae Adams in week 2, saying, well, he's obviously the main target with the Raiders, and he might be priced up by mid-season, end of the season. He might be up at 10,000, right? He might be the kind of Cooper Cup-ish wide receiver from last year, where it's like, well, he's basically a lock for double-digit receptions, probably going to get 100 yards, 100-yard bonus, and then he breaks the slate if he gets a touchdown. And he's kind of been forgotten about. I mean, he was kind of sick last week, I guess. Missed practice all week, I think, and then was playing sick. But I think this Raiders offense is much better than it has seemed. I mean, it looked actually terrible. I think it was just last week that it looked absolutely terrible. And Josh Jacobs is hogging all the touchdowns. But that's probably going to spread out a little bit. And this is the perfect matchup for it to spread out because Devontae Adams has been totally forgotten about. And there's like a first impression bias, right? But like, I cannot get out of my head how good Devontae Adams looked like the first week of the season. And now he's totally forgotten about it. He's, they're one of the higher point totals of the game or of the week, right? Like that's one of the higher point total games of the week. And so it's 10 games, every game's between 40 and 50 points. That one's got a tight spread. It's on the kind of upper half of that. I think at 47.5. And it's a game that's not like the players are not as expensive as they should be. Like Etienne's not as expensive as he should be. And Devontae Adams is not expensive as he should be. Like Foster Moreau is not as expensive as he should be. Like, You can stack that game so easily with Devontae Adams. I don't think a lot of people are going to be necessarily going there. You can stick in like Zay Jones. Like you can make a huge stack out of that. And I don't think people are going to be playing Carr or Trevor Lawrence. And I think both of them are in play in that kind of cheap range of quarterbacks we were talking about.
I think so too. I think that look, I saw the same thing that everybody else did. I played Derek Carr last week. I might have had the best Derek Carr double stack of the entire week last week. It's just when you have 5 of the optimal lineup. I had all the Kamara as my run back. You have Tony Pollard, which is easy. Everybody had. You have Foreman who scores 35 or whatever. Play Jalen Waddle as a one-off. Hit the total stones, and you have a Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, Mac Hollins stack. Trust me, I know it was not pretty. It was not pretty. No one knows. They didn't make it to midfield. The starting offense never made it to midfield last week. So trust me, against a bad Saints defense. So I know, I get it. But the point is, if you wiped away last week, the Raiders were. It's Rich Rebar, who does a Wednesday night show here on RotoGrinders called the Pick Six. I'm going to screw up the exact stat that he referenced, but the Raiders offense was first in the NFL in, I believe it's possessions that end in points. I believe that's what it was before last week. And so they're scoring 20, 25, 30 points every single week. And because it hasn't worked out perfect for Devontae over the course of the last month, and they had a just a terrible clunker last week. Everybody's like, screw the Raiders, dude. They're terrible. And it's like, yeah, but 2 weeks ago, Carr threw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's like, we forget that the sequencing of all these events is so fascinating because DeAndre Hopkins is the new, oh my God, he's going to get all the targets. He's always going to be safe, blah, blah, blah. We thought that about Davante Adams a month and a half ago. Davante was that guy a month and a half ago where we were like, he was 50% in tournaments against the Arizona Cardinals earlier this year. And like how quickly we are like, nope, that guy who no one could even stomach fading at like 8,500. Now at 8,100 against the Jags, we're not playing them. And this game is like the epitome of it's probably my favorite tournament game on the slate. And I agree that Carr sucks. I agree with everything you guys are saying. I don't want to play him either. But like it's too good of a situation. I think play Lawrence. If you don't like Carr, no one said you have to play Derek Carr. Play Trevor Lawrence. He has a little more rushing upside. I think that's fine. But I think that game is awesome for tournaments.
Yeah, and I think I'm particularly interested in Davante Adams. Like looking at the season, like I think you maybe just have to throw out last week, like you said, and Davante Adams in particular was like notably sick. Like they said, he like barely made it to the field.
Mm-hmm.
You throw out that game, I think he's got over 30 DraftKings points in 2 out of the 6 other games. And another one where he's over 20. I mean, yeah, he does have some duds, which I wouldn't have expected earlier this season. Like
right.
He is a guy that can absolutely break a slate. So yeah, definitely interested there.
So I'm not trying to call anyone out in the comments, but this is 100% why this game is the best stack. You don't have to play Derek Carr, and the Raiders offense. If you prefer Josh Jacobs, I don't give a like. There's 4 good plays on the Raiders. We didn't even mention Matt Collins. Matt Collins is a few weeks from winning people millions of dollars a few weeks ago, and he's going to play every snap in a great. You don't want to pay up for Davante because the offense is a mess. You don't want to play Chalk Foster Moreau. That's fine. Matt Collins is 4,600 at 0.5% ownership or whatever. Play him as your run back. That's totally fine. Like Raiders fan, don't trust our offense. They suck. Diehard Raiders fan, they suck. I agree. I'm not betting on them to win. I'm not betting on them to win the Super Bowl. I think they suck too. But this is the power of DFS tournaments. Like if they suck, then the Jag stack is a smash. And then if the Jags stack is a smash, you're going to get 40-something pass attempts from the Raiders, and they only throw it to 3 dudes. Like that's I'm glad we talked about this one because it's like the epitome of what a great tournament stack is to me on this particular slate. Anything else on that one?
No, just like looking at tight ends, right? Like it's a pricing thing as well. Like that game can not necessarily go absolutely bananas. It doesn't have to be like 50 to 45. The prices on these guys are so low. Like try to find a better cheap tight end than Foster Moreau, and your only option's Evan Ingram.
Or Ingram. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The both of them,
And Eddie Ann's probably going to be one of the more popular players on the entire week just because of his price. And then so like you can maybe even like throw out both quarterbacks, and you're still with a mini stack of that game with some kind of Moreau, Eddie Ann, and then you just play Davante Adams or Matt Collins or Zay Jones, right? And you're kind of with a mini stack, and you can actually stack another game as well.
Exactly. It's kind of a different of an alternative version of what we talked about with like Fields Mariota, where Fields Mariota was like, okay, maybe you play Kyle Pitts with them. I think you could sprinkle some Darnell Mooney with Justin Fields, right, in large field tournaments. But generally, you're just playing those guys as like almost like NBA DFS, right? It's like there's just this guy, the shooting guard sucks. I'm just gonna play this guy, plug him in, get my 15 to 20 points, hopefully more because he runs, but I'm going to use him as a building block to the rest of my lineup. Marcus Mariota gets you Austin Eckler. Their ceiling outcomes correlate, right? Justin Fields gets you Tyreek Hill. Their ceiling outcomes correlate. This game, literally everyone besides Davante Adams is underpriced. And like you said, Davante Adams is underpriced at 8,100, maybe not given his run that he's been on now, but like his talent, his potential, his ceiling is as high as anyone on the slate. And again, no one's going to play these guys. And so, love this game. Darren, shout out Darren, first time listener. Thank you for tuning in. We also like Justin Fields. So you're already right on the right track. Real quick, I want to pivot back to Eric Pitts, Kyle's brother, wants to know what how would you rack and stack these running backs in tournaments? Let's do DraftKings because Deion Jackson's kind of a thorn in the side on FanDuel. For tournaments, who are you kind of targeting a little more out of the running backs?
So I don't think you need to get crazy because the guys are all well priced, and it's going to be a pretty consistent thing. Like most of these guys are going to get some receptions, and that's going to give you some floor. Like Ramondre Stevenson, I think for the price on DraftKings is probably the best because he's the cheapest out of that stack of running backs that I was talking about, like the Etienne, Aaron Jones, like Joe Mixon. Like he's cheaper than all of those guys on DraftKings. Like Etienne, probably second best. Kind of like Joe Mixon, like 6,500. He's right there with those guys, that same price point. I think Deion Jackson is in play, and then Austin Eckler. If I can get the money, I think Austin Eckler is the guy, just because Justin Herbert's looking at him so much, like so many receptions, and they're still without Mike Williams, still without Keenan Allen. He's put up his low over his last 4 games is 24 DraftKings points.
Crazy.
Like 3 games, the other 3 games he's over 34 DraftKings points. So wasn't didn't have a great start to the season, but Eckler is probably the guy that I think could break the slate. Double-digit receptions each of the last 2 games, receiving touchdowns in 3 out of the last 4 games, and rushing touchdowns in each of the last 4 games. I mean, that is an incredible 4-game stretch there. And a lot of it has to do with the injury situation with the Chargers losing all their wide receivers. They're just dumping the ball off to Eckler. So I think he's the guy probably most likely to break the slate at the running back position.
I think Eckler is a great example of guys can be not low owned, but under owned. That's how I feel about Austin Eckler today. I think I like all these better point per dollar plays. I love Etienne. I love Ramondre. I'm really high. I'm going to get to Donta Foreman. I'm really high on Donta Foreman. Obviously, Deion Jackson projects well. Aaron Jones is like the 1B to Austin Eckler for me on this slate at running backs. But Eckler is like a wide receiver 1 and a 60-40 running back split player all in one. Like we were talking about, Devontae Adams is underpriced. Austin Eckler has 28 targets in the last 2 weeks. One game they were down. The Broncos game was close. The whole game. He had 16 targets. They're fighting for their playoff lives. They were trying to hide him early in the year. The only reason he's not like old school Christian McCaffrey price, right? 10K, 9,500, whatever, something like that, is because they were hiding him early in the year, not giving him some goal line work, right? Really splitting. He played like not even 50% of the snaps the first couple of weeks. That's over. They don't have anybody else. Like they can't do that anymore and win games, and they need to win games to make the playoffs. So I just think their whole offense is basically Austin Eckler now. And just because of the way this slate breaks down with all the running backs that you mentioned and we've mentioned so far, he's like, 12% on DraftKings, like for the highest projected scoring play, like my personal highest projected scoring player on the whole slate against the Falcons. Like, yeah, sign me up. And then Aaron Jones is the other one where on FanDuel, I think just a total smash, like in a vacuum, looks awesome. On DraftKings, I like him even more because the price is just a little bit above that tier of all those other backs you mentioned. And I can get him at a slight discount. And all I got to do is go to these crappy Raiders that, are on the worst offense in the NFL. We discovered today, go to these crappy Jaguars passing game guys. I can get Aaron Jones. I can get Austin Eckler. And they, in the best spots, really, with maybe the best ceilings, are lower owned than all these other guys just because of kind of how the pricing has happened to work out. So I kind of like doing a little flipping of the build, if you will, at the running back position. Really quick, I always forget to do the plug, and I'm trying to be a better employee. If you're interested in betting on the games today, this is a genuine testimonial, by the way. I am a user of scoresandodds.com. I read all the picks that all these guys put in every single day. I use it for my line shopping, the odds comparison, for all the way down to player props. You want to see, player reception odds comparison. It's at scoresandodds.com. You can do literally anything you want to do with odds. For me and for the show, probably the player prop stuff is an absolute gold mine. There's picks on every single game from really smart people, much smarter people than I, putting in really well thought out. They give you the reasoning behind every single pick. Scoresandodds.com. The picks are in the premium package, but check everything else out too. I really highly recommend the odds comparison, but just everything that they have on the site is huge for sports bettors. I use it every day. Let's talk about, we'll hit some more of you guys' questions, I promise. You have some really good questions, but let's talk about maybe another game, and then I'll segue into what is your, if we throw out the Jags game, what is kind of your highest priority game stack, if we want to put it that way?
Probably Green Bay and Detroit. It's going to be where I land most often. Was it like Josh Reynolds is out, so Khalif Raymond starting opposite Amon-Ra St. Brown. The Detroit running back situation is a little bit difficult. Probably not going to go there a lot, just because I think Swift is in, but we don't know how much work he's going to get. And it's a little bit too risky for me. I mean, with 150 lineups, I'll probably get there somewhat, but in smaller build stuff, like I probably am not going to be touching the Detroit running back situation. Just because hopefully nobody breaks it with 3 touchdowns or something like that.
Jamal Williams, this would be the perfect slate for Jamal Williams, who we'll never talk about, to have 100 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron Rodgers is underpriced. I like the idea of just stacking Rodgers with Aaron Jones. You could running it back with Amon-Ra St. Brown. You could also, I think, Tanyan at the tight end position, or I think Lazard is active, I believe. So that might be a thing that people don't catch, and you can play Alan Lazard pairing with Aaron Rodgers. Another game. So we should talk about the setup. There's only 2 afternoon games, like only 2 4 p.m.
Yeah. Good call.
So like 8 1 p.m. games. So probably not gonna be doing a ton of like late swapping. But there is a game like Seattle and Arizona is probably worth talking about. Kyler Murray's a little bit expensive. You can maybe use like Geno Smith there. Then take him, one of his wide receivers, either Lockett or Metcalf, and then you're opposing with DeAndre Hopkins. You've got a little game stack right there. That's out of the 2 4 p.m. games, probably the one that I'm more interested in with the higher total.
See, that's interesting. I wanted to propose to you the Rams-Bucks game, and here's why. This is the Devontae Adams of game stacks.
Yeah.
Everyone, and trust me, it's the same. If we want to have the same, the chat's going to come after me with pitchforks again, just like when I touted the Raiders. I'm about to tout the Rams and the Bucks, and both of these offenses suck. Let's get that out of the way first. These 2 teams suck. The Rams, I cannot believe they won a Super Bowl last year. The Bucks, I cannot believe. I can believe. Giselle got the voodoo doll out, and like it was over. It was over for the Bucks, but they stink. Both offenses stink. But it's offensive line issues. So both teams still have the ability. The quarterbacks are fine. They have the skill position talent that is absolutely good enough to move the ball and score points. Neither of them can protect. And when you have statue quarterbacks, especially as they get older, you cannot have a porous offensive line. You definitely cannot have some of the worst offensive line play in the league, which is kind of what both of these teams have, particularly the Rams. They also can't run the ball. So I get it. I'm not excited about either of these 2 teams. However, they are both pass funnel defenses. I think the Bucks statistically are not grading out as quite the pass funnel this year, but historically, with this almost same personnel, they have been a massive pass funnel. And frankly, the Rams can't run the ball anyway. It doesn't matter if this is the Lions. The Rams aren't going to be able to run the ball. The Bucks are going to throw regardless. Brady, since week 3, is averaging 46.5 pass attempts per game. It's basically all going to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. No matter the matchup, none of that matters. And Fournette / Rashad White. So you have a situation where I know the Bucks are going to throw. And even when the Rams throw, if they're not successful, I know where it's going. Cooper Kupp, if I really want to use the tight end, I have Tyler Higbee. They're not going to run. I have this game where it's like, I don't know, everything's going to Evans Godwin. There's a cheap punt tight end on both sides, Cade Otton and Tyler Higbee, and there's Cooper Kupp, who everybody's given up on Cooper Kupp. Or Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp on a 10-game slate where we're like, I don't know, I don't like any of these games. Nobody's freaking playing Cooper Kupp or Devontae Adams. It's just kind of crazy to me. And so these afternoon games, I still am going to plant my flag on the Jags-Raiders game as kind of my favorite tournament game. But both these afternoon games, I think, are under-owned relative to their strength on this slate. If this was a Bills-Chiefs slate, we'd be having a very different conversation, but it's not. We're talking about naked Justin Fields and naked Marcus Mariota and stuff because it's a hard tournament slate for upside. And these two games, I think, have it, but we're not playing them. It's weird.
Yeah, I think if we'd said 4 weeks ago, like I talked at the beginning, it's not one of those binary slates where there's just one game, that's an outlier game. But like a month ago, if you had said, looked at this slate and said, okay, there's 10 games and the afternoon game is Rams Bucks, right? Like you would have said, like, oh, that's maybe the outlier game where everybody's just going to stack that game, right? Because we got to stack like Mike Evans, and Cooper Kupp, and Chris Godwin. Like, Chris Godwin's really well priced. Like I'm going to end up playing a lot of Chris Godwin. Mm-hmm. I think the lack of touchdowns has really hurt him. But double-digit targets each of the last 3 weeks, like 4 out of the last 5. It's just that they're not getting into the end zone because the entire offense is stalling out.
Yeah, it's not his fault. He's not the one preventing him.
Yeah, you talked about like a pass funnel, 2 pass funnel defenses. Like that's great for receptions. Like signing up for Cooper Kupp and Chris Godwin, just piling up receptions in this game. Leonard Fournette is another one probably not going to see any ownership at all because we've been waiting for like 3 years now for somebody to take Leonard Fournette's job. There's always some like pass catching back behind him. Oh, this could be the week that Fournette's. And every week I watch and like the first touchdown in the games,
always
the games, like
every time Leonard Fournette from the 1 yard line. I don't know how this dude does it every week.
Yeah, but I mean, there's touchdowns count. Like even if we're waiting for like Rashad White is now, I guess to take his job was like LaShawn McCoy and I don't even forget these
Keyshawn Vaughn.
So yeah, I think it's a game it's not going to see any ownership, and it's a game that a month ago, 4 or 5 weeks ago, we would have said like, oh, that's probably the game that's just going to break the slate. Everybody's going to stack that game.
Lenny was the stone chalk for a stretch this season. Again, rightfully so. Was meh, right? You see on your screen 18 fantasy points, 9, 12, 18, 35.9.
Yeah.
You get the 35 point. He had 14 carries for 58 yards in that game when he scored 36 fantasy points. But guess what? He had 11 targets and he scored 2 touchdowns. That's like the Fournette special. Like if he did that today against the Rams, would anyone be surprised? And he's 4% on FanDuel and 5% on DraftKings at a price that he was like the first cash game lock a month ago. But now it's like, and again, I get it. I see the projections. I agree. Travis Etienne over him. Ramondre over him. Donta Foreman over him. Joe Mixon over him. All these guys have flapped him when like a month ago, I don't know, he scored 36 fantasy points and then 22 fantasy points, and he barely had 100 rushing yards in both the games combined. So he's another good example of like, man, this slate to me is just such an awesome tournament slate where like everybody says, sorry guys, not to dunk on you guys in the chat. I promise I'll hit some of your questions and be nicer. But everybody says, you can't stack the Raiders, you moron. They suck. You can't play the Bucks. They suck. You can't play the Rams. They suck, right? You can't play the Seahawks Arizona game. It was 19-9 last game. Didn't you watch? It's like, yeah, but like that. But so what? You're going to play Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Rodgers hasn't scored more than 17-something fantasy points all season. And I get why he projects well. It's the Lions or whatever, but everybody's going to jump to Aaron Rodgers and we can't play Tom Brady. We can't keep playing Geno. All Geno does is turn out 20-point games every single week. So I just think this slate is such a good tournament one where you can, sometimes it's hard. Like you said, it's binary, right? Guess I got to fade the Bills and Chiefs and pray to God, that it doesn't end up 50-42. This is like, I can fade the chalk and play really, really good plays that project almost the same, And so these are the slates I think that are the most fun for tournaments. To hit some of the questions, is CPAT is active and is he on a pitch count? I have no idea. I would assume yes, not necessarily a pitch count, but more so that I would not be expecting the 20 CPAT carries you got earlier this year. I think that Algier and Huntley have both done well enough with Arthur Smith. And my God, Arthur Smith is going to try to run the ever-loving shit out of the ball today against the Chargers. That I would, call it a three-way split. Even if CPAT's the lead, those other guys are going to play.
Yeah, and he's the guy that generally gets there on efficiency anyway. Like when he was breaking slates last year, it was because of touchdowns with 14 carries. So I think you can play him in tournaments. Like if you're doing 100, like in one of those Million Maker tournaments.
Yeah. How much would you play of like him as a run back to your? Because there's not a good run back to Charger stacks, and I do like Charger stacks, even if you do the Mariota thing or like Fields or whatever. Yeah. Eckler teams. How much would you play of like CPAT? How much would you play of these Falcons? CPAT, Pitts, London.
You probably not. Yeah, I'm gonna end up with a lot more Chargers than Falcons. And part of it is like the Chargers have been losing guys, and the Falcons are getting them back, right? So like Josh Palmer is really attractive, from the Chargers because he's the last wide receiver standing. Like Eckler, is appealing because he's the other last guy standing. I guess Gerald Everett. So there's three guys, but they're all basically underpriced for their opportunities.
Yep.
And that's what I'm getting at. Like Drake London, I've played a lot of them this year, and I'll play some of them again this week. But it gets frustrating because maybe it's just not an offense that puts it together. To the benefit of Drake London.
Probably Shannon mentions it.
Probably Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, you nailed it, Shannon. These are the same concerns that I have, that John has. The Falcons just come out and they're facing a horrible run defense. Arthur Smith will run against the best run defense. So what's he going to do here? His best path, I assume he thinks, is to establish the crap out of the ball. And so that's definitely, that's a problem. It's a problem for playing Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and maybe even CPAT if he uses the other running backs. And it's a problem for Charger stacks. However, if it doesn't go that right, again, this is what everyone thinks. Everyone thinks the Raiders suck. Everyone thinks the Falcons are just going to run it literally every snap. So what if that doesn't happen? What if the Chargers get up by 3 touchdowns and he actually for the first time throws it a little bit more? Those are the scenarios. And so we're not saying like go all in on this stack, but there's very clearly ceiling outcomes from players in that game that are like way outsized on their price. Like you said, Josh Palmer's the wide receiver 1 on this team. DeAndre Carter is unowned, playing in the slot every snap and playing in 2 wide receiver sets. Gerald Everett, Austin Eckler, Kyle Pitts, all these guys have ceilings that are better than their price. It's just, I totally agree. The normal outcome of that game is like 14 Mariota pass attempts and 50 runs, and it's like 21-17 or something like that, but the upside is huge.
It's one of the higher point total games of the week. I think it's the Falcons Chargers game. It's Seahawks Cardinals and Packers Lions are 3 both kind of been flip flopping around 48.5, 49.5 points total points for the week.
I wanted to bring this up because isn't it funny that we can't mention Davante Adams, but Damiere Byrd is getting multiple touts. In the chat, you guys are not wrong. Damiere Byrd has been kind of their deep threat, and he's made some plays, but it's just kind of funny. It's like everybody's like the Raiders, they got cooties, but Damiere Byrd, did you see Damiere Byrd catch that long touchdown? Like, play him in your Million Maker lineups.
There's a price difference, to be fair.
Yeah, yes, just a little bit. FanDuel tournament from Cheyenne: Eckler, Mac Hollins, Hayden Hurst versus Davante Adams, Christian Kirk, Gerald Everett. I assume you're in on this game that we have been talking about with the Jags and the Raiders. Do you have any preference between these two?
On FanDuel, I'd probably go with the second one, like the Davante Adams, Christian Kirk, Gerald Everett. It's a little bit more touchdown heavy to me. And so like I like Eckler for the receptions, but yeah, they're only a half point on FanDuel. So I'd probably lean. I do like Hurst, and I like all 6 of these guys, to be honest.
Yeah, yep.
But I probably like the second one a little bit better.
I think the second one has a little more raw ceiling. I haven't pulled up the ceilings from the game or from both of those games. But I think the second one has a little more raw ceiling. So sorry, trying to hit. Here's a good one. I do prefer Matt Collins over Darnell Mooney. I mean, when you take a step back really quick, like Matt Collins is playing every snap as the third option in a pass heavy ish offense when pushed. Right, the Raiders will actually throw when pushed. Darnell Mooney is the one on. Justin Fields hasn't thrown more than 25 passes all season in a game. So give me Matt Collins in that one. We hit on this, Donnie. Hopefully you listened to that part of it, but just to rehash, I do believe this game has been underowned. Pretty into that and the afternoon. Now I've scrolled all the way back in the comments to the Raiders stink section. So I think we're on to them. Let's talk about tight end. This is a good segue. Klippa asks, TJ Hawkinson or Gerald Everett? I'm going to kick it to you first between these two, and then also kind of a segue into how you're handling the tight end position, which is kind of tough. I don't want to play any of these guys. Can I just play another wide receiver? Like, I don't want to play any of these tight ends.
Yeah, so tight end, it's true. It's kind of a wasteland this week just because of who's not on the slate. But I like Gerald Everett. I think like TJ Hawkinson versus Gerald Everett, I would go with with Everett rather, just because Hawkinson, I think it's his first game with the team, and Everett is really stepping into a role with Mike Williams out, with Keenan Allen out. He could be one of the main guys. I mean, he's going to have to be one of the main guys for the Chargers. So I like Everett. I like Hayden Hurst. Similar thought process with Jamar Chase out. More of a red zone presence. He's been having like a pretty decent season. I mean, he's getting a handful of looks every single week. Got a couple of touchdowns. So don't mind Hayden Hurst. Everybody's cheap, so you can kind of pick who you want. I'm probably for tournaments going to be just stacking tight end, right? Like if there's a game stack,
yep,
stacking with that tight end. And Foster Moreau probably going to be playing every snap for the Raiders. And yeah, extremely cheap on both sides.
Yep. Definitely love Foster Moreau again. Playing him last week. If you didn't notice, they never made it to midfield. I'll bring that up again. That was painful. But I like the Raiders again. Foster Moreau being kind of the best-ish play on the Raiders. Robert Tonyan makes sense in you mentioned the Green Bay Detroit game stacks earlier. I think Robert Tonyan makes a ton of sense. Again, to your kind of theme of what lineup and like what story is my lineup telling? Let's hook the tight end into that, right? Yeah. Because they all suck. So how do I and Brock Wright, the next tight end on the board, fits into that as well. This is our point. This is sorted by our point per dollar projections on DraftKings, and at the min, look, it's Brock Wright. Like, I'm not going to sit here and put my hand in the dirt and tell you he's, going to be the next superstar tight end. But at the end of the day, they don't have TJ Hawkinson. They don't have Josh Reynolds. DeAndre Swift is limited, and the Packers are probably going to score a bunch of points. You have a $2,500 tight end who would be kind of like, okay, I'm playing Aaron Jones. Maybe you don't have Amon-Ra in this lineup. Brock Wright makes more sense than Robert Tonyan on that team or Foster Moreau. Evan Ingram, I think, is my favorite tournament tight end, which is like always just you need to log off unregular tournament teams when you're in on Evan Ingram, because that's when he's going to drop 2 touchdowns. But this is, again, the Raiders have the second to worst pass defense in the NFL. You can play whatever you want with Lawrence and Ingram. Absolutely whatever you want. Do you want to include Devontae as a bring back? You want to play Matt Collins, Josh Jacobs, whatever. It's not super chalky. You see 8.5% ownership on Evan Ingram. He's been like legit really good. Really good is a relative term for fantasy tight ends. He's been very good, and he's accumulated a lot of targets. And so I think he's my favorite. We have Kyle Pitts here, Hayden Hurst. I love the Hayden Hurst call. And then I'm going to throw Cade Otton out there as well. In that, I would really only use him in the scenario in which I'm probably stacking Brady or stacking that game or doing something with that game, playing Cooper Kupp. Because he's another situation where, remember, it was a few weeks ago, Cam Brate gets hurt for the first time. And Cade Otton is everybody's like, K-Dot and cash game lock. Got to play him. Well, he's basically the same price, and now no one's playing him. It's like, what the hell happened? The guy, he scored like 10 fantasy points in his main starts or whatever, but we just wrote him off since then. So I like him as well. Anybody else at tight end we didn't mention?
Yeah, I like the Evan Ingram call. He's got at least 4 receptions and 40 yards in each of the last four games. And on such an ugly week at tight end, like that might be all you need.
Enough. Yeah. Get in the paint, catch 4 balls, get in the paint. Honestly, I think that's what you're looking for. I mean, look at this board. Like, seriously. Foster Moreau, Robert Tonyan, Brock Wright, Evan Ingram, Kyle Pitts, Hayden Hurst, Tyler Higbee. You give me 4 or 5 catches and find your way into the end zone is really what you're looking for. Of course, if you can get more, that's gravy, but like that's all you're really looking for. Denny asks, is Ingram good for cash? I do believe so. He's close enough in our, you see on the board here, point per dollar rankings. He's in the top 4. So if you prefer, he does project for less raw points than Foster Moreau. And Foster Moreau's $100 less, so I think Moreau is probably where I would go. I'm not a cash player. I stopped playing cash, so I don't take my advice as gospel. But based on our projections, I would use Foster Moreau in cash. But I don't think Ingram's unreasonable. Oh my God, breaks. Have you been drinking? Did you go to brunch today? Let's get out of here with this. Daryl, Cam Akers is back. Ronnie Rivers is apparently the RB1. Daryl Henderson, you're crazy. Donnie asks, do you have any? Oh my God. Gonna make me rehash this take. Do you have any interest in Robbie Anderson at no ownership? Do you buy the coach speak at all? So I talked about this on our Friday show. I'm actually interested in your take on this. Not necessarily just Robbie specific, but so Robbie has been traded to the Arizona Cardinals a few weeks ago for anybody that's been living under a rock, and he has done nothing since he's gotten to the Cardinals. But the coach speak that is being referred to here is Cliff came out this week and basically said Robbie is like in a better place to play more, and we need to get him involved. And he actually said we're going to force feed him the ball. And he is, I believe, 3,800 on DraftKings. Maybe I'll toss him in the afternoon. I'll stack that game on the afternoon or something and toss him in there. But I do think we talked about him on our Friday show with the player profiler guys. I think he makes for kind of an interesting Millie dart, like probably in a Kyler stack or Geno. I would want him to be the guy that like sets that game off at no ownership. I'm not playing him in a Derek Carr team, but I do kind of think he's worth a flyer in large field tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, he's not the kind of guy that gets like fed the ball, right? Where he's going to put up like 15 receptions, but he could break a long touchdown. So I think he makes a lot of sense in game stacks. I mean, he's obviously affordable on both sites. I mean, there's guys that at the price range I probably like a little bit better, unless I'm stacking that game. Like Damiere Byrd's the same price on DraftKings.
Oh my God, how the mighty have fallen. Robbie Anderson versus Damiere Byrd conversations is where we're at. I actually prefer the guy you mentioned at earlier in your Packers Lions breakdown. Khalif Raymond looks really good to me. I played Khalif Raymond a couple of weeks ago. I think he's kind of one of the better like sneaky-ish tournament plays. Again, probably a little bit more stacking that game, but I think you can leverage off of Amon-Ra with him as well in like an Aaron Jones lineup or something like that. I think he makes sense, and probably leverage off of Brock Wright too, if that ownership comes through. Klippa says Mike Evans, Juju. Oh, which do I sit? Anyway, we'll answer your question. That's fine. Mike Evans, Juju, Amon-Ra, Olave. Juju. There you go. Yeah, answer that one. Here we go. Josh Jacobs and look at this. That segue into Jerome's question. Josh Jacobs and Khalif Raymond, or Ramondre Stevenson and Drake London? You go first. Isn't this a funny question?
I'd probably do Jacobs Raymond.
It's Jacobs Raymond. It's Jacobs Raymond for me. Obviously, it kind of depends on who you're stacking or whatever. But in a vacuum, for me, in a tournament, it's is it crazy to say Khalif Raymond might have more upside than Drake London than Drake London? Is that crazy?
Yeah, especially like Josh Reynolds out. So I'd go with the Khalif Raymond.
Let's talk about Deion Jackson on FanDuel. I want to hit defenses and then any kind of game stacks that maybe we might have overlooked or missed. But we do need to talk about Deion Jackson, particularly on FanDuel. How are you treating him in your, I know you run 150. How are you treating him in your tournament lineups?
I'm just playing a lot of them. I mean, like 5,000 is really cheap. So
crazy.
Nobody's a must play, but like you can fit in a lot of other players. Like when you a lot of very nice expensive players when you play Deion Jackson, and you get there's an opportunity cost, but you can play 3 running backs, and it's a half point per reception site. So it favors the running backs in that sense. So he's not a must play, but I'm not going to say anything to talk you out of him at 5,000.
Zay or Rondale as a one-off PPR. So DraftKings, Zay or Rondale.
Probably go with Zay Jones because they're adding.
God damn it! We're digging this grave on the Raiders Jags game. This is going to be 9-6. This is going to be 9-6 or something in the Raiders Jags game.
I think you can play either. I just think with the Cardinals that they've added more, like just recently, added DeAndre Hopkins and Robbie Anderson. So that leads me a little more.
Connor back. Connor back. Supposedly Connor is back. Adam asks, T. Higgins and God damn it, all these Drake London questions. It's going to be the other. If you have a Drake London question, just pick the other side. T. Higgins and Drake London, or Tyler Boyd and Chris Godwin. That's actually easy to me. Boyd Godwin for me.
Good Boyd Godwin.
Okay, let's run through. Is there a game stack that we did not talk about that has really jumped out to you? I know we didn't talk about everything. There's a lot because every game is probably stackable, but was there any that's a priority for you that we didn't hit on?
I think we pretty much went over everything, but I will say, and I think I see a question in the chat, the only game we haven't mentioned at all, and it was the first game that I, on my Friday show, said this is the one game that I'm maybe least interested in. It's Washington and Minnesota, but Justin Jefferson then is going to be very, very under-owned. So actually, I think he's a great tournament play. I think you can play him as a one-off. I don't necessarily think you need to stack this game. You can actually do a little bit of a mini stack, like Justin Jefferson and Terry McLaurin. You want explosive playmakers in your tournament lineups. So that's like a little mini stack you can put in. And I think Antonio Gibson's going to see more work than people are expecting with J.D. McKissic out.
I agree.
So that's just the last game we didn't touch on at all. And it probably is my least favorite out of the only 10 games. But that doesn't mean you have to avoid it entirely, especially if you're doing multiple lineups. Like you should get some Justin Jefferson in there.
Definitely. And you can play McLaurin. Jahan Dotson is out again. Remember, Curtis Samuel was the chalk for a few weeks. Curtis Samuel is the cheap version of Devontae Adams in DFS, where he was getting so much usage to start the year that it was like, oh my God, I got to play $5,400 Curtis Samuel in cash. And now, in a fine matchup, in a game, like you said, that's just as good as any other one, it's like, who the hell is Curtis Samuel? I'm not playing Curtis Samuel. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I'm saying these are the themes of the slate where we can really get leverage on a Taylor Heineke, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel stack with Justin Jefferson as the bring back or whatever. That's a totally reasonable tournament team to me. On this slate, and nobody's doing any of that. All right, defense. Super quick, and then we'll hand it off to the crunch time folks. They're waiting for us. Defense. Any strong defensive takes from a tournament perspective?
Not really. I'm probably going to spread it out as much as I have. All
it's
season.
Bad. This is bad.
You're just rolling the dice, right? You're rolling the die on defense. There's nothing that stands out. Like I said at the top of the show, there's no rookie quarterback making his first NFL start or anything like that. No particular weather situations we want to take advantage of. So I think it's pretty wide open. I would save money if you can on defense. But I can't probably Patriots if I'm paying up is going to be the defense that I like, maybe the Bills. But yeah, it's a roll the dice. So just save money if you need it.
Yep. I'm going to be eating some Panthers chalk, and it is what it is. I really like their defense. I really don't like Zach Taylor and the Bengals, so it's just kind of whatever. Just get me 7 points or something. I know that's not the GPP take, the GPP bro defense take, but I think that's totally fine. Before we get out, one final take. What is the one thing people got to play in tournaments out of everything that we just walked through. We basically talked about every game stack, but what is the one thing people got to play in tournaments to take down the big money today?
Let's see. One thing.
One player, one stack, whatever. You can pick.
I'm going to go with Justin Fields and Tyreek Hill.
I love that. I love that. I'm gonna go back to our Jags. I'm gonna go back to our Jags Raiders. Some form of a game stack of that game is the winner. I'm not gonna force you to play Derek Carr. I'm not gonna force you to play Devontae Adams. But there's too many good and well-priced pieces in that game, from the chalky ETN and Foster Moreau all the way down to Matt Collins and Zay Jones and all these guys. I think everybody in that play in that game is a good play, and people aren't playing most of them. So that'll be the game for me. Pair that with you can play Justin Fields and a secondary correlation of our Jags Raiders game. Drop your comments. Drop your questions. Crunch time, folks. We'll handle the rest of it for you. But for myself and for John and for Steve, we'll see you guys in week 10.
What is going on, grinders? This Chief, and we're talking Thrive Fantasy NFL Week 9. No time for particulars. Get in the prop shop. Let's hop right in. Is it over? Is it under? Let's find out. So we've got Aaron Jones facing the Detroit Lions, one of the worst teams in football on the ground, at 65.5 rushing yards. This is too low, folks. This is my top play of the week across any site, especially on Thrive Fantasy. We're taking the over. We're hopping to Josh Jacobs. Had a down week last week. But guess what, folks? This is a workhorse. Going to get 20 to 25 touches in this game at 77.5 rushing yards. I think this is too low for a guy that can really blow past 100. Taking the over here against the Jacksonville Jaguars on the road. All right, this is Chief. We've been talking Thrive Fantasy. It's week 9. We'll see you back here next week for week 10.
What's up, RotoGrinders? I love that theme. It gets me fired up every single time. Whole squad's here. I'm here with Dre. I'm here with Kristi. I think I might have scared the crap out of Dre when I yelled when we got on there.
My fiance scared the living hell out of me just now. She just showed up out of nowhere saying hi, whispering down to my bones. Oh my God.
Glad it wasn't me, but hopefully our fantasy teams aren't going to scare us as much today as Dre's fantasy did for him. How's it going, Kristi?
Hey, it's going great. Good to see you guys. I was just thinking about you guys the other day. We started this thing together in Chicago and kind of midway through the season, so can't wait to do a show with both of you.
Heck yes, this is a lot of fun. I knew I was hosting in advance this time, and so we didn't have that big delay at the start of the show. Also here with Andre Alford. Hopefully his heart rate is coming down a little bit now. How you doing, Dre?
It's coming down, but yeah, I'm doing pretty good over here. Trying to, last minute get my lineup in as usual. But I'm feeling good about this week. It's a great tournament week, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of different plays that you can go with, and hopefully give us some winners. If not, winners for us to take down a tournament.
Heck yes, and my neighbor is shoveling right outside the window behind me. We had a big snowstorm here the last couple of days, and that kind of caught me by surprise. But yeah, I'm ready to dive in, talk some winners. We'll talk some cash game plays. We'll talk some tournament plays as well. We're going to get things started over on DraftKings here. I can pull up a screen share for us right away here, unless Steve's got that in the background. first things first, general overview of the slate, kind of from up top, not necessarily the specific plays or anything, but like what games are the two of you liking today, and how do you think you can take advantage of maybe what some of the field is doing in tournaments?
I'll let you go first, Kristi.
Yeah. So for me, there's a few games that I really like to target. One of them, really, the Buffalo game, I think is just a great game environment. And it'll be interesting to kind of talk through that with you, because I think ownership is a little bit different than where I kind of thought it would be at the beginning of the week. But that's certainly a game I have a lot of interest in. I like that Chargers Atlanta game. Justin Herbert, Eckler, and crew there. Interested in that Arizona Seattle game, and then a little bit sneakier stack too that I definitely have some interest in is surprisingly that Bears and Miami game and some pieces of that as well. So those are a few games, and I should mention too, that Detroit Green Bay is projected to be very, very popular. So we'll kind of talk through Aaron Rodgers and crew and what that game means too.
I like it. I like it a lot. How about you, Dre?
Yeah, I like my top games I'm looking at that I really, really, really like a lot too. I'm really like that Arizona Seattle game. I'm just gonna go right back to the well. It went under last week. It could go under again. The divisional games are tough, so that's the one thing. Like, I think that's also one thing that's also keeping people off of that Buffalo game too a lot. Besides the price point, Jets have a good defense, so you got to worry about that a little bit. So I'm not as high on Buffalo. I do like I want to get on this Green Bay game a lot. I probably will have at least a little bit exposure to it. But lately, like as I'm building like more and more towards like closer to lock, I'm getting a lot more onto like Jacksonville, Las Vegas. I don't know why. I think the ETNs is in a good spot. This could be a bounce back for Devontae Adams. So I'm just right now trying to get a lot of those guys, but I do also like Atlanta and the Chargers as well. Pretty much I'm gonna try to do some game stacks, more so than just regular like 2-1s. I'm gonna do like full on game stacks, like especially in the Millie Maker, because I'm going to try to it's either all or nothing for me at this point when it comes to that contest, and see what happens from there.
I'm with you 100%. We talked about that on the FanDuel Friday show, and we're going to be looking at GameStack this week. And one of the reasons I want to start on DraftKings is we're going to rip through that decently quick so we can spend a lot of time on our sponsor, FanDuel. The FanDuel Single Entry Series is back for NFL. Don't forget to reserve your entry at the $5, $33, $100 tier and get in on the action for weekly and seasonal prizes. Shout out to our current leaders for the first week of contests. From week 8, it was in first place, a great name. We have TJ Culver. Second place, we have Professional. That sounds very professional. And third, we have TF Belongia. You can also sign up for the FanDuel Sportsbook if you're in a legal sports betting state and take advantage of their awesome bonus offer. Bet $5 and get free 3 months past the NBA League Pass, regardless of if your bet wins or loses. Jeez, I'm having trouble speaking today. Terms and conditions apply. We also got Scores and Odds. We got you covered over there. Scoresandodds.com, your number one place for all sports betting. Get ready for the NFL season and arm yourself with the best tools and analysis. Check out the brand new Parlay IQ. Free for everyone currently. Use it to build optimal same-game parlays based on thousands of games worth of simulated data. Hit that like button for us if you're watching on YouTube. We got 500 people watching right now. Don't have 100 likes yet. We need to slide our fingers over. Hit the like button. We got FanDuel sponsoring this crunch time. If we want to keep it free, we need those likes up. So hit the like button, and we'll be taking our premium member Discord questions first, taking our YouTube questions second. But let's get into this slate. Let's start on DraftKings. Kristi, I'll start with you from kind of a cash optimal standpoint this week. Is there any players that you feel like are must plays from in an optimal lineup?
Yeah, so for cash game plays, I think there's a couple guys that you're looking at. Josh Allen. I mean, you have to pay up for him, but I mean he simply just has the highest floor and ceiling around. So I think he's a fine play. I think for cash game plays, though, Aaron Rodgers is right there. He's just at 5,900 on DraftKings, and he gets, one of the best matchups against Detroit. Tough to trust Aaron Rodgers, but he could also put up a bunch of points here too. So I think those are a couple of really good cash game plays. I think you could throw Geno Smith in there as well. He's just priced around the same price range as Aaron Rodgers. And we really like that Seattle-Arizona game. So I think he could be a fine cash game play. So those are three of the guys that I think I'm looking at. And I think you probably could throw Justin Fields in there too, just at 5,300, kind of just play him solo, and really kind of load up on some other positions. But I think those are a few of the guys in the cash game conversation.
I like it. Dre, how about you? Whether it's optimal or some tournament staples, people you're wanting to get way overweight on today, are there any players on DraftKings specifically that stand out to you? We got Ramondre Stevenson, 6,200, just feeling way, way too cheap for him. Amon-Ra St. Brown has all of the color tags on there. Who are you looking to target in optimal lineups and in tournaments?
Those guys definitely for sure. Like, you have to just play those guys. I think they're in too good of a position. I'm getting well over the weight to field on DeAndre Hopkins today. I think he's a fantastic play. That's going to be owned, but I don't think as high as he should be. Personally, I'm getting a lot of ownership also on Devontae Foreman too as well. I'm going to be well over the field on him, so I think that is a good GPP play, and just standing out to me a lot. These pretty much the Seattle side, like the receivers, like DK Metcalf is only going to be like sub 10% ownership. I'm going to be well over the field on him. Devontae Adams, sub 10% ownership. Cooper Kupp, sub 10. Like, these guys that are good receivers and good players that are in good positions, I think, to go to exceed their value and go over it. I'm going to be well over the field on them. And I'm getting a lot of Trevor Lawrence today, so I'm going to be probably well over the field on him a lot too as well, and Deion Jackson. And the Jets defense. Not just because of $2,000, but I actually think the Jets defense is a good defense this year against the Bills.
I think that's definitely interesting for tournaments. And we have our RotoGrinders core plays as on DraftKings is Amon-Ra St. Brown, Travis Etienne Jr., Ramondre Stevenson. I think it makes sense that those are the first three players you want to put into a cash game optimal style lineup. For the QB position, before we head over to FanDuel, and then we'll touch on some salary savers that are maybe DraftKings specific before we do that too. But I want to make sure we save lots of time for the crunch time sponsor FanDuel. And so I want to hop over to that pretty quickly here. But at the QB position, where are we going? I know, Kristi, you like Aaron Rodgers. A lot of people are talking up Justin Fields today for cash games. Would you rather pay the $600 more for Rodgers? Are you okay with Fields? Or are you looking to pay up for somebody like Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, or Justin Herbert?
Yeah, I like all those guys. So I like Allen and Kyler Murray a lot today. I'm kind of building in that 3 to 5 lineup range. So I've got an Allen lineup, a Murray lineup. I do have interest in Fields. I'm maybe a little bit lower on or lesser on Aaron Rodgers maybe than the field is. I just think Fields we're starting to see some of his upside with the rushing yards, but I do think Rodgers is a great play too. And then, throwing Geno Smith in there. I will say Justin Herbert, I think, is just a really great tournament play too, getting exposure to that Chargers side of the game. But those are the guys that I'm looking at. But I certainly don't mind Fields as a cash game play today too.
I think that makes a lot of sense. What about the tight end position today? Is there anyone in particular that you feel like are a must for cash games? For me, my guy today is Gerald Everett over on FanDuel. But on DraftKings, where the pricing on tight ends is just so different, you can get some cheap guys in your lineup. Is there anybody standing out in particular for the two of you? I'll start with Dre.
For tight end wise,
yeah,
I'm getting like Everett is definitely setting out to me. He's only coming at 8%. I think that's just maybe more of just a price thing, but he should be to me like the highest owned tight end on DraftKings here. So I'm just going to be well over the weight on him. I do like getting well overweight on Robert Tonyan as well, and Evan Ingram. Those are the guys I'm mainly looking at, and I also don't mind taking some shots on. Foster Monroe, I gotta sneeze, and then and Tyler Conklin, and Zach Ertz as well.
Makes a lot of sense. How about you, Kristi?
Yep, I like those guys too. I think Robert Tonyan is certainly in the cash conversation, DraftKings and FanDuel. I'm with you on FanDuel. I think Everett certainly makes a lot of sense. Now that we know that Waller's out, Foster Moreau, I think, is a really great play. I like the Evan Ingram call too. He's just been putting up a ton of points. Very, very good there. Kyle Pitts, I think you can throw him in, especially on some of those Charger bring back stacks there. And then another guy I think that's going to come in at low ownership that I think you at least got to throw in there, especially looking at that Buffalo game, is Dawson Knox. He's just, especially over on FanDuel, he's just $100 more than Tonyan, but I think he makes a really fine tournament play as well.
I like it. That makes a lot of sense. Let's turn it over to FanDuel here. For me, there's not a lot of differences on both sides. I like a lot of the same players on both. I agree completely from an optimal standpoint, the core plays that we got tagged, and then in tournaments, another player that I'm really prioritizing both optimally and in tournaments is Deion Jackson today. Nice and cheap for the Indianapolis Colts, and a running back that I'm getting to a lot in tournaments now that he's active. I'm not super worried about the coach speak. I think this is going to be a high scoring game. It's Cordell Patterson. Cordell Patterson is a guy that I'm planning on getting in my Chargers stacks today. I love a Charger stack over on FanDuel because it's just so cheap. And so my way of getting different is what Dre talked about earlier. I'm not just going to play Justin Herbert with Everett and Palmer and that's it. I'm full stacking three Chargers with Everett with Herbert, and I'm running it back with Patterson on the other side of this one. AJ Dillon is another guy I really like for tournaments. A lot of people are going to be on Aaron Jones, and AJ Dillon is, I think, a good pivot off of that one a little bit. Let's talk FanDuel specific before we get into some questions here. The running backs and the flexes. We got Ramondre Stevenson tagged again here, Travis Etienne tagged, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Deion Jackson over on FanDuel. 3 running backs, so we're filling out our flex position, and we got Amon-Ra St. Brown in there. Do the two of you agree with those tags? Are those your main priorities from an optimal standpoint? And is there anybody else you'd want to add in there as well? Because for me personally, I really like a guy like DeAndre Hopkins and DK Metcalf today. I'll start with you, Kristi.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, TJ. I like all those plays, and Deion Jackson just makes a ton of sense. I mean, at his price point, he just doesn't have to do a ton. At $5K, I'm just taking it and running with it because I just think he's a great play. Stevenson, I agree, is a great play too, especially with Harris out. They're favorites and they should be running the ball a ton. So I like that too. We love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, he's definitely priced too cheap, like you mentioned. But I do have a ton of interest in Hopkins and Metcalf too. I mean, Hopkins, since he's been back, just getting a ton of targets. So I think you can get a little bit different here in that, third piece or so. There's just a lot of great plays in that range. And Austin Eckler, his ownership has been on the rise too, just because, I could see them using, him being a big focal point of that offense and really pounding the running game there too. So I like all those plays. And then you throw Aaron Jones in there too. Another guy that I heard Dre mention was Foreman. And I think he makes a lot of interest in that Carolina defense as well. And I just think he's a really good contrarian guy at a cheaper price point. So I like a lot of those cheap RB plays, and I think you can kind of mix and match and get a little bit different in there too.
I think that makes a lot of sense. At the receiver position, Dre, how are you prioritizing Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp? What's your top tier? How are you prioritizing these guys?
Goodness, this is on FanDuel. It's kind of tough. You want to go with the guy that has the most upside. So, like me personally, I want to go with the guy like Hopkins. Kupp probably is my top 2, and then probably followed by Hill and then Diggs being last. Just because I'm under on the Buffalo game. The least. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game personally. Justin Jefferson, though, is also very sneaky in a good matchup, too. So I don't mind even taking a shot on him, too, as well. So he probably would go ahead of Stephon Diggs for me as well. And I don't mind these guys at all. But like I said, the first two will be I'm trying to get in. It's either Cooper Kupp or Hopkins. Like, we're not playing Cooper Kupp. Well, I understand why the price is $9K, but Cooper Kupp is still like probably the best wide receiver in the league, and he's played well against the Patriots. I mean, sorry, keep thinking Tom Brady, but he played well against the Tampa Bay. Pretty much like every game, I think he's since dating back to like since McVay has been there. So to me, you just got to play that guy at that point. At low ownership, I'll take my chances, and hopefully he goes off for another ceiling game and scores 2 touchdowns, which I think is definitely in the store for him today.
Yeah, I agree with you there. So I want to save a decent amount of time for questions here. I've been answering them in the chats, but I want to ask them to you guys as well. I'm going to start with the Discord and the NFL Crunch Time channel for premium members. We'll go to YouTube after that. Apparently, just out of the kindness of people's hearts isn't good enough to get them to hit the like button. So look, I need less than half you to do this for us to accomplish this. If we had 200 likes, we'll give away a free week of RG Premium. So hit the like button. We're almost at 100 right now. Double it up. We got 500 people watching. We can make this one happen. So let's start with some questions so I can mute my mic where we got barking dogs upstairs right now. Kristi, I'm going to give you the cash questions if that's cool with you, and Dre the tournament questions. But then, Kristi, if you got a strong take for tournaments, feel free to mix them in there as well. FanDuel Cash, Curtis Samuel and Ramondre Stevenson, or Travis Etienne and Josh Palmer?
I would say Travis Etienne, and Josh Palmer.
Yeah, it's that one for me by a very wide margin as well. FanDuel single entry, Dre. Would you go with Geno Smith, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Robert Tonyan, or Tyler Heineke, Terry McLaurin, and Ty Conklin?
First one.
That's what I said as well, but I feel like if you got Geno Smith, you're going to want to make sure you probably have at least one of Metcalf and Lockett in there, but I'd prefer both. FanDuel Cash, Curtis Samuel and Miami defense, or Josh Palmer and Chicago defense?
I think I'd rather get Palmer in there, so I'd probably go the Palmer route, Palmer in Chicago.
Same here for me. I'd rather just take the variance at the defensive position and get Palmer in there. Dre, FanDuel single entry, he currently has Commanders defense. He has Gibson in this lineup as well. Would you stick with this defense or play Raiders defense, because he doesn't have ATN? And if you don't have ATN, you could get a lot of leverage by going with that Raiders defense as well. What do you think?
I mean, Raiders defense is not the best, but I'll probably go Commanders defense just because it's Chase Young. I think Chase Young is back today, so I would definitely go with the Raiders Commanders defense. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. This one's for me, but I'll get it to you guys as well. Favorite FanDuel stack for single entries? For me, it's the Chargers today. It's a full stack of the Chargers. Justin Herbert is nice and cheap. You can get his pass catchers nice and cheap as well. And then I can get some really strong, expensive other plays in there that I'm prioritizing, like Stevenson, Hopkins, Etienne in the mid-tier, stuff like that. Interestingly enough, Dre and I talked about stacks on the FanDuel Friday show, and I'm not actually getting to some of the stacks that I talked about there just because I picked up this hosting show and I didn't play a lot. And I hand built a few game stacks in the big contest on FanDuel, but I'm not playing as heavily as I had planned. I like going the full game stack, so it's somebody like a Trevor Lawrence with 3 receivers and running it back with Vegas. Somebody I didn't even talk about on the FanDuel Friday show, and I'm getting to, is Jared Goff. With Josh Reynolds out, it kind of just, and TJ Hawkinson gone, it kind of locks in the target share to St. Brown and some really, really cheap really, really potential up for an increased role. Guys like some cheap tight ends who I don't even remember their names off the top of my head. I'm looking at James Mitchell. James Mitchell is going to be my guy today at min price at 4K on FanDuel in some tournaments. So Goff is a stack I'm somewhat interested in. I'm playing the Bills full game stack, running it back with Wilson on the other side because we have Tre'Davious White out on this one. But my main stack is going to be the Chargers. Kristi, how about you? Favorite single entry for FanDuel?
Yep, I like that. Mine would be actually the Bills, and I didn't really get a chance to talk about this in the receiver, but I love Gabe Davis today. He's coming in a lot lower ownership. He can obviously break a slate really quickly. He's coming in at lower ownership than I expected, so I really like that a lot. I like Wilson bring back on the other side and just really getting some full on game stacks here. But that's my favorite for single entry.
I love it. Dre, what about you? Favorite stack for single entry?
That's tough. It's so tough. I'm leaning towards either Seattle or Jacksonville. I'll probably go with Jacksonville, honestly.
I like it. FanDuel single entry GPP. Oh no, just kidding. We already answered that one. FanDuel cash: Metcalf and Godwin, or Devontae Adams and Palmer.
For cash.
Yeah. I think I'd honestly, I really like Palmer, but I'd almost go with Metcalf and Godwin for that one.
I think so too. Yep. I would go
projection wise, I think that's the answer there.
Yep.
DK cash 2v2, Palmer and Eckler, or Godwin and Aaron Jones?
Palmer, Eckler, or who? Aaron Jones?
Godwin and Aaron Jones.
Ooh.
That's a cash question as well.
I'll probably say the second one, though, personally.
I probably would too, just because you've got two Chargers in there. I like it, but yeah, I'd probably go the second one.
I'm high on the Chargers. For me, it's the first one, but that's just because I'm a big Chargers guy today. No format, just in general. Dre, I'll throw this to you. Ty Conklin or Foster Moreau?
Conklin.
For me, it depends on my lineup. If I'm playing lots of Jags, it's Moreau. If I'm playing lots of Bills, it's Ty Conklin. Do we like Justin Jefferson for a FanDuel GPP? Yes, I think he's very interesting over there. Dre hit on him as well. I'm switching over to the YouTube chat now. FanDuel cash, Eckler and Amon-Ra, or Tyreek and Etienne?
Oh, boy.
Eckler or Tyreek and oh my goodness,
those are both really good.
I would go Eckler and Amon-Ra on that one.
Yeah, I think I would too. Just I really like Eckler too. Yeah,
but it's GPP wise, right? If it's GPP, I'm gonna have to go to the second one because Tyreek's gonna be lower owned than Amon-Ra.
Exactly. That was FanDuel cash, but I agree that they're both good, and I would go second for GPP, first for cash. FanDuel cash, Kristi, Curtis Samuel, or DeAndre Carter?
Samuel for cash.
For me, it's Samuel for cash, unless you just for some reason don't have Palmer, then I would maybe put DeAndre Carter in there. DK cash, lots of cash questions. DK cash, Aaron Rodgers and DJ Moore, or Justin Fields and DK Metcalf, or Josh Allen and Terrence Marshall. I don't think you play Terrence Marshall.
No, I don't think you do that one. What was the first one? First was
Rodgers and Moore, or Fields and Metcalf?
I think I would actually go Fields and Metcalf. Getting Metcalf in there, I think would be good.
Me as well. Dre, in a FanDuel GPP, who's your favorite mid-tier receiver?
Oh, hold on, got it right now. Mid-tier. Let's call. What do we call in mid-tier? Like 5K range, 5 to 6. I'm gonna say probably if it's like 6 point, like high sixes.
Let's say under 7K.
So Gabe Davis, definitely. I like him. Or Thielen or Rondell Moore. That's my 3.
For me, it's going to be Gabe Davis, or it's going to be Christian Kirk on that one, actually.
I forgot about Kirk. Yeah, he's a great play, too.
FanDuel Kristi cash. Do you prioritize Eckler or Josh Allen? If it's Eckler, what QB is your favorite? Now, Eckler, I think is fantastic, but in our core tags as well, we got 3 running backs who are not named Eckler.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'd probably prioritize Allen in there, just because his upside is just really great on FanDuel. So I think I'd get Allen in there. And it was one or the other, correct?
Yes.
Yes, I would go Allen.
All right. FanDuel cash, Kristi, Tanyan and the Bears defense, or Brock Wright and the Dolphins defense?
I'd go the first one.
Me as well, but I don't mind taking some shots on Brock Wright if he's in fact in the lineup. I haven't actually seen them confirm that he was going to be playing. They did call up a tight end from the practice squad, so that's why I'm more inclined to take a shot on the other cheaper tight end over there. Gerald Everett, yes, Gerald Everett is the best tight end play on the slate. Tyler Boyd or Cordarrelle Patterson in the flex in a DK GPP, Dre?
Tyler Boyd or Cordell Patterson in the flex. Goodness, see, I want to say CPAP. I love CPAP today, but I'm gonna take a chance to say CPAP just because the matchup is so much better. And I think that he has a chance to have a big game here.
I like it. Another question: Cordell Patterson, run back in a Charger stack. Yes, I like that one quite a bit. Last one from YouTube before I'm going to swap it over to back to the Discord. We got 3 minutes before lock. Make sure you get your lineups in. Make sure you hit the like button as well. FanDuel cash, Joe Mixon or Deontay Foreman? I think the answer is neither for me. I would want to play. I would prioritize Stevenson, Etienne, Deion Jackson, Aaron Jones, and Austin Eckler over both of those guys. But if you're choosing between the two, which one is it for you, Kristi?
And you said it was
Mixon or Foreman.
Yeah. And this is on DK.
Yes.
I'd probably go Mixon. But yeah, like you said, I think I'd probably.
Oh, sorry, it's FanDuel. It's FanDuel.
FanDuel. Okay. There's a little bit.
There's a price difference, so I don't really get it.
There's a price difference. Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, yeah, probably go Mixon, but yeah, there's a $600 or $700 price.
Point per dollar, it's more with a $700 price difference. But if you have the salary, it's Joe Mixon.
That's exactly right.
FanDuel cash, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Dolphins defense, or Josh Palmer and Bucks defense, Kristi?
Amon-Ra St. Brown and
Dolphins D or Palmer with the Bucks D?
I'd say the first one.
Me as well. Dre, on FanDuel, do you think you're giving up too much ceiling by playing 3 6K running backs and spending up at receiver?
No.
Not at all. I agree with you.
No.
DK Cash, who's a greater priority, Kristi, to get in your lineup, Deion Jackson or Deontay Foreman?
Foreman for me over on DK. I like Jackson better on FanDuel.
FanDuel GPP, Dre, Travis Etienne or Raheem Mostert?
Oh, see, I like Mostert today, but I'm gonna have to say Etienne just because Mostert is with Jeff Wilson coming to town. We don't know what the snap count is gonna be like.
1 minute till lock. DK Cash, Etienne and Ingram or Jackson and Everett?
Etienne and Ingram.
Yeah,
I would say the first one.
Yeah.
And then FanDuel cash, Tyreek Hill or DeAndre Hopkins. It's Hopkins for me. What about you, Kristi?
I like both, but yeah, go Hopkins probably for cash.
1 minute till lock. Looking over to YouTube really, really quick.
We are at lock.
GPP Kirk or DJ Moore? The answer would have been Kirk for me, but we just hit lock. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. I want a hot take from each of you today before we get out of here. Kristi, what's your hot take of the day?
My hot take of the day is Gabe Davis scores the most touchdowns for receivers on the slate today.
Gabe Davis scores the most touchdowns for receivers on the slate. Dre, what about you?
I like that. I should have put maybe I get that on a bet. I wish I could have. That's a smart 2 touchdown bet. I'm gonna say for DK for the Millie Maker, I think either Seattle game sack or Jacksonville game sack takes down the Millie Maker today.
I like it. I like it a lot. We got lots of good content coming for you today. Make sure you hit the like button on the way out, but also stay tuned because later on we're going to have the Lineup HQ premium show for Sunday Night Football with Squirrel and Cards, 2 of the best tournament and single entry players in the world. We're going to have a Twitter space later on with Dean and Blender. We're going to have NBA Crunch Time with Britt and our man Dre coming back on for that one. And then we close out the day with some pre-lock, myself coming back with our man Will, Chief Justice, breaking down the Sunday night football game. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you hit the like button on your way out. Good luck today on behalf of myself and Kristi and Dre, our wonderful sponsors, FanDuel and Scores and Odds. We are out of here. See you at the top of the leaderboards. Peace.